Edge himself, CM Punk. Thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
I guess our very first question would be, we ask everybody this, were you a fan of wrestling growing up?
Yes, I was a big fan of wrestling growing up. This is redundant, I say this all the time, but I don't know if everybody knows it, but the first memory I have, not just of, wrestling, just the first memory I have is Roddy Piper smashing a coconut over Jimmy Snuka's head. And I realized that like a young age, that's all I ever wanted to do. I never wanted to be a fireman or an electrician, or I never wanted to walk dogs or be an astronaut or anything like that. I figured he was like a millionaire too at the time, which is probably false, but I just figured these two huge guys were probably millionaires, and he was smashing fresh produce over one guy's head, and I was like, that's me, that's what I want to do. So that's pretty much how it all began, how the first seed was planted.
So WWF was your first company that you started watching?
Well, yeah, I'm from Chicago, so I never really got a whole lot of NWA stuff. I was, WWE was a Northeast company, and WWF, God, I hate calling it WWE. They were like a Northeast company, obviously, and NWA was more Southern, so I got WWF. Occasionally I would watch NWA and stuff like that, but even back then, I would turn it on, and I was a big fan of the Sunday show, because it would just be tons of wrestling.
Right.
I liked Arn Anderson and all that other stuff, but I would always change the channel when Lex Luger came on.
Huh.
Even at a young age, I knew that.
What was some of your favorite stuff growing up?
I was a really big Shawn Michaels mark because of his work rate, because being a fan and not knowing what the hell work rate meant, there was this guy having spectacular matches, and I recognized the fact that even though they said he was 220 pounds, that he was really 175 or 180, and he was the guy having the most dynamic matches at the time. I remember even when he was tagging with Jannetty, the Rockers, they were doing stuff that was just awesome. I was also, when I originally, started watching wrestling, like I said, Roddy Piper and the British Bulldogs. I was a huge British Bulldogs mark, to the point where I wanted to be a British Bulldog for Halloween every year. Yeah, and then once the Bulldogs were gone, it's funny how wrestling works. It's once they were gone out from the WWF, it's I thought they didn't exist anymore, and then years later I come to find out that Dynamite was the man, in Japan and all that other stuff. But those are the main guys that always did it for me.
Now you ended up actually getting into the business through a guy by the name of Danny Dominion, was it? And Ace Steel? Ace
Steel and Danny Dominion and Kevin Quinn trained me at the Steel Domain in Chicago. I went there, 98, I think. I have a horrible memory. And I will preface going to the Domain with, I will regale you with now my tales of backyard wrestling, which I think everybody does who gets into the business. It's just a thing you do, and me and my friends goofed off and had fun and filmed crap we did, and just had fun, stuff like that. And the Chicago wrestling scene was so bad. I would go to indie shows, and just the state of wrestling in Chicago was so abysmal. I mean, there would be guys like firefighter Jim, who's so grossly out of weight, there's no way he's even a fireman, and it just, indie shows are so bad. It was we got the mentality that what we were doing was better, and it was really low rent, bad public access stuff. Just a bunch of kids goofing around in the backyard and stuff like that, but somehow we got a ring and we ran a show, and nobody was trained, and it was god awful. And after that first show, I watched it and I said, this is horrible. And since I got out of the group, I was the only one who actually wanted to be a wrestler. It was just something to do for everybody else. That's when I went to the Domain, because I was serious about it. So, yeah, there you go, if anybody wanted to know that. It is a shoot interview, so I will speak the truth.
What was the training like?
Well, since the state of wrestling in Chicago was at a piss poor level, and when I would go to these indie shows and stuff like that, I could not control myself, and I would make fun of everything I saw and yell at the top of my lungs and stuff like that. Pretty much everybody in the Chicago wrestling scene hated me, and Danny and Ace, you know, they took me in. Ace likes to now say that he saw potential in me, but I just think they wanted to beat the shit out of me, and they did. Training was very, very tough. Kevin Quinn especially would beat the crap out of me. And you gotta, like, they all had different stuff going on. You know, Quinn had his own thing going on, and he was more of like a helper. Danny and Ace were the ones who had the big vested interest in the school. And Ace, you know, Ace had his job, so like some days he was there, some days Danny was there, other times, you know, Quinn was there. So it was like, it's kind of like a 3 different perspective on how to train and what the business was about and stuff like that. And Quinn was way more Japanese influenced than Danny and Ace. Ace was a lot more technical than Quinn or Dominion, and Danny wound up teaching me more what not to do in the business, basically through his actions, than he ever really taught me, like in the ring and stuff like that. A lot of the time now, I don't even really credit him with, like if people ask me where I trained, I won't even say his name. And that's not just me being disrespectful. If it was a perfect world, me and Danny would still be friends and we'd still talk and stuff like that, but there's a stigma that comes with his name, and you know, when you're trying to get into places, even mentioning his name sometimes gets you funny looks, and you know, it might not get me booked, but lots of running, lots of cardio for the training, lots of bumps. I remember one particular time when I first started working shows, it was like hell. You'd have to, you know, show up early, like Friday or Saturday morning at the school. You take the ring down. The school is on Irving Park Road, which is a 1-lane highway. You'd have the truck parked on the street. You'd have to unload the ring, put it in the truck, drive the truck, you know, 4 or 5 hours to like Upper Wisconsin, unload the truck, haul the ring up 3 flights of stairs, set the ring up, you know, wrestle if you were lucky, take the ring down, 3 flights of stairs again, put it back in the truck, drive it back, and then have to set it up, usually that night again. So there's like me in Cabana when he joined up a couple months later, wound up doing like 36-hour days, like just crazy shit like that. But one particular time we didn't put the ring up, so when we got there, Quinn just said, just put the mats, you know, foam mats about maybe an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch thick, and just put those on the floor and we'll just bump on those. Of course, he didn't take any bumps because Kevin Quinn's a smart man, but I was learning and paying my dues, so I had to take many, many bumps on pretty much just the floor. But you know, I remember Quinn was a perfectionist. That's why to this day, I love him. I swear I did like 700 arm drags one day because I couldn't get it right. Always going off to the side. Even to this day, sometimes I do it. But he was just repetitive. You know, if you didn't do it right, you had to do it again. You know, the first day I met Quinn, he said, "Hi, I'm Kevin Quinn." I said, "Hi," and he grabbed my arm. He put me in a cobra clutch and suplexed me right on my head. He said, "How'd that feel?" And before I can even say anything, he said, "This is a tiger suplex," and grabbed me and just, you know.
Memories of early work as part of the Goon Squad. And you do like something with pantyhose on your head or something?
Yes. I thought I was gonna have to divulge that one myself. No, yeah, the legendary Goon Squad. Rockin' Randy Ricci, who used to be a Memphis guy for Jerry Lawler. Has done jobs for New York forever. Really good guy. He used like me, Brutal Brad, who is now going by the name of Brad Bradley, I believe, who started training pretty much the same week I did. He used me. There was Ricky Noga, who was training at the Domain, and pretty much anybody who was at the Domain who was green as shit and just wanted to pay their dues and just wrestle was put in the revolving gimmick known as the Goon Squad, where it was like jeans with like oil stains on them, like a sleeveless like denim vest and pantyhose on your head, which helped out a lot, I'd say, because, you know, you figure you got pantyhose on your head, you might as well just act the fool already. So that's how I got in there, and it was Randy's great, because like I remember one particular show, him going, Punk, you're gonna work twice. You're gonna do, you know, the Punk thing, you're gonna work Adam Pearce, and then you're gonna do the Goon Squad thing. I had tattoos back then too. Like, the people aren't gonna recognize this, and I was like, Randy, what if they? And he's like, they won't notice. No way. They're not gonna pay attention. So yeah, no, I didn't get paid twice for that. But Goon Squad's hilarious. It's always a running gag between like me and Cabana and anybody who's still around who used to do that stuff, because it was just the Goon Squad. It's basically what it is. We're like the Foot from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and just, you know, stormtroopers from Star Wars, Xylons from Battlestar Galactica. Wow, am I a nerd for saying that? We are just like the random, you know, crappy foot soldiers that just did nothing, and we sucked, and we were green, and we were horrible, but we were thankful for the work.
You also worked AWA, I guess, for Dale Gagne. What was that like?
Dale Gagne is mad. This guy is a total carnival shyster. Nice guy, him and Johnny Stewart. Johnny Stewart's still to this day one of the funniest men I've ever met in business. But Gagne, or Gagner, or whatever you want to call him, liked to... well, the main appeal of working for him, first of all, was he did casino shows. He would do these big, gigantic paid shows on like Indian reservations. And it was like just completely lawless. And it was like, we would literally get a 15 passenger van, load all our gear in it, and it would be me, Cabana, Danny Ace, Ricky Noga, Brad Bradley, God, you name it. Big Butch McLean, who's another guy who came out of the domain and pretty much dropped off the face of the earth. Eric Priest, a couple guys from Wisconsin, like Derek St. Holmes. We'd load like 10 people in this van, plus all our gear and everything, and it just, I remember one particular time going up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and doing like it's like a double or a triple shot weekend or something like that. And it was just, you know, like gimmicks galore. It was like Danny would do the Patriot, and like Ace would wear like a hood and be like luchador. There'd be like fake Golgas and fake doinks running around, and it was just like, I didn't belong on these shows at all, you know, but it was just like, you know, and at the time it was like a huge payday for me, so, but, God, I'm gonna start telling stories already, and I'm sure later on you're gonna ask me about stories and stuff, but just the Gagner shows were just always so ridiculous, because they were like at carnivals and, you know, like I said, casinos and Indian reservations, and I remember one particular time, me and Cabana liked to people watch, you know, so we worked the first match on the show, and he was doing, Gagner loved Cabana, he was all gay for him, he had him do this, Colton Cabana III, wore his Letterman jacket from college football, and he was the captain of the hockey team, the captain of the baseball, basketball, lacrosse, you know, he was like super sports guy, you know, which is not far off from Cabana. And we'd work the first match, and we'd get dressed right away, and we'd just go out and we'd just wander around carnivals, you know, in like odd places like Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and stuff like that. Well, we came across like a camel. There was like all these barnyard animals and like horses, and they were horribly mistreated. And me being, you know, like, you know, Mr. Conscience at the time, I let all the horses out. And so the horses were galloping around this carnival, like just trying to run people over, and they had to like corral the horses. And we took the camel, and we brought it over to the Sheik, Adnan, General Adnan from WWF.
All right.
Adnan's crazy. I was like, Adnan, you gotta get on the camel, ride it out there, you know, blah blah blah. But he didn't want to do it because he was being a babyface, believe it or not, all dressed in his Iraqi robes, going out to the ring chanting USA. But he couldn't chant USA. It wasn't like a rhythmic USA. It was USA, 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 and it was hilarious. I loved working for Gagner. It was good pay, and it was just, it was like such like shenanigans would go on. It was just awesome.
When, I guess at this time, did you start developing the straight edge gimmick at all? Not even a gimmick, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a gimmick because I use it as my pro wrestling character. But I mean, what you see is what you get in the ring when it comes to me. Yeah, the first place. I mean, yeah, I would do it. You know, be throwing up the X's, and I always taped up my hands and stuff like that. When I first really got to do it was in Mid American Wrestling for Carmine Despirito. He pretty much just gave me the mic one time. He just said, "Hey, cut a promo," and I'm CM Punk. I'm straight edge. I'm alcohol free, drug free, better than you. Was born. It was like the first thing I said on the mic. So pretty much that became my whole catchphrase spiel. And I really just kind of gave birth to the whole thing right there. We used to do shows on an old Knights of Columbus that sold alcohol, so it was really easy to get the crowd all riled up. And I can't even tell you how many fan fights and brawls I got into just because, you know, I'm the guy in the ring going, "Hey, I don't like alcohol." They're gonna throw beer on me, and I would just get out of the ring and just jack people. And yeah, it was a good time.
How long have you been straight edge for?
I just turned 25 a couple weeks ago, so 10 years. I'd say like when I was 15.
Did you go any partying before that at all, or no?
No, I always hung out with a lot of people that were a lot older than me, and so I saw a lot of stupid shit by the time I was 15, and it just never appealed to me.
Right.
My dad really was an alcoholic, but it didn't scar or affect me like a lot of people think. It was just like, you know, he would just get drunk and pass out, but he's completely recovered now. My dad is a very cool person, so yeah, I'm waiting for my dad to stumble across like a Ring of Honor tape where I'm complaining about my drunk father and get a phone call at 4 in the morning and my dad's gonna be all upset. But no, yeah, it's all pretty much a shoot. It's all just an extension of who I am. And what the hell was the question?
We were just talking about how long you've been straight edge for.
Yeah, since I was 15. Like, you know, I remember when I was a kid, you know, helping my dad cut the grass. My dad, "You want a sip of beer?" And like, I take a sip of beer and just think, this tastes like warm piss. Like, why would you even drink it? It just never appealed to me. It never made sense to me. I could always have fun without getting fucked up, and you know, this was never my thing. So when I first, you know, started listening to like Minor Threat and stumbled upon like this whole thing, I was like, "Hey, wait a minute, that's me." You know, "Hey, I'm straight edge," so you know, it's kind of like that.
What are some of your memories of your first really big matches? I guess the ladder match with Ace Steel, where you got color for the first time.
That was awesome. I was at the time, and still am, like, I was really excited to do stuff like that, but I was really proud of all that because the underlying story, which eventually just all got flushed down the toilet by Wonder Dunce promoter Ed Hellier, because we had like a really good TV thing going up there, which he would screw up because instead of spending the extra $50 to get the 30-foot tall lights for the building, he would get like the 15-foot tall lights, and it would ruin like weeks and weeks of TV tapings. But the whole storyline was, it was a Friday shot, and Ace worked, like, I had the lightweight belt, which at the time was a big thing for me because I was just happy to, you know, I had a belt. I was going back and working these shows in Minnesota. And I always remember Minnesota being like the place to be. Like, Danny and Ace would be like, you know, talking while I was working out in the ring, saying, "Yeah, Minnesota, blah blah blah." You know, all the guys up there, they're all gassed up. They all have good bodies. They all look really good. You know, we got a good thing going on. And like him, Pierce, Quinn, and Billy Joe Eaton, another old Chicago worker, would always go up there. And I just always, Minnesota was the place to be when I first went to the Domain, like 97, 98. And they gave me the lightweight strap like right off the bat, and it was, you know, like Ace wanted to put it on me because, you know, like I said, he saw potential in me, and it was like he wasn't going to be at the next show, so like I wound up winning this tournament, and we feuded over the belt, and eventually like I dropped the belt to him. There was like a lot of heat for it up in Minnesota. I was like a huge baby face with the Bouncing Souls Olay music, with the crowd would like sing it, you know. You know how Samoa Joe does the Olay kick? Like the crowd would like, that would, my entrance music was that song. So like for my comebacks, instead of like just sitting in the chin lock and, you know, getting in the clap and stuff, they would just sing the song. It was really cool. I lost the belt to Ace on like a completely like heelish, like fuck finish. Like the next week or something like that, it was a double shot. Ace worked Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn won the belt, but the next day Jerry Lynn was working his first WWF shot at the pay-per-view Sunday Night Heat, where he went over for their lightweight belt. So he said, you know, I won this belt, but I can't, you know, obviously I'm going to the WWF, you know, so long, I can't do this. So the commissioner came and said, well, you know, Ace wanted to do like an old Bockwinkel thing where he just gets the belt back, but the commissioner said no, because you cheated CM Punk out of this. So they held it from the rafters and we had a ladder match. And that was, I honestly think it still holds up today. Like I watch it, I haven't watched it in like the past year or so, but like when I dub some of my best ofs and stuff, like I'll see it, it'll be on, I'll watch a couple spots or whatever, and I think it still really holds up. And I know Ace is still proud of that match, and I am too. It's just a lot of fun setting up. But once again, Ed Hellier, super promoter of the year, comes through with like this gigantic rickety wooden ladder, and like he had like 2 step ladders. There was like 2 6-foot ladders, which like we were taller than, and then like a 17-foot ladder made of wood that was like torn off the arc. You know, it was like so old and just, but we made the best of it, and I think at least we had a good match.
Now you also had worked Colt Cabana, including a 2 out of 3 falls match in Minnesota. What memories of that?
That was our, I remember sitting down and going over stuff with Cabana, and I just remember looking at each other going, dude, let's just tear the house down, you know? Like, that was our first position where we were both put in the main event, and like just the stuff we were doing, and like we were the first 2 guys that, you know, we worked out together, we traveled together, you know, we slept in cars together, just, you know, I'd crash at his place, he'd crash at mine, we did goofy triple shots all the time, worked for no money. We were just on the same page, and like we were both totally on that night, and that's still one of my favorite matches. I think the last match I had with Cabana over in England topped that one, but for different reasons, just because we're worlds different right now. The both of us are like, we've come so far from the 2 out of 3 falls match, but that match was just a lot of fun, and it was just, I think it's paced really well. And Danny Dominion was the ref, and he was like straight up like Tommy Young. He was selling for everything, and like it was just, you know, and then like Cabana turned heel, and yeah, as Jimmy Snukas would say, it's some good memories, brother.
How'd you end up at IWA Mid-South for Ian Rotten?
Dave Prazak, manager of champions, Dave Prazak, the Sausage King of Chicago. Basically, because Prazak was, and ever shall be a main facet of indie wrestling in the Midwest. He is always helping out. Like he was like Carmine DeSpirito's and right-hand man in Mid-America Wrestling, and it was just a matter of, hey, you know, he worked for Ian too, and he helped out Ian, and it was just, hey, I got these 2 guys, you know, CM Punk and Colt Cabana, you know, and they're really good. Here's tape. Ian watched tape. Ian said, yeah, bring them down. And Cabana had his first match, to which, if you go back and watch it, it's probably horrible. And Ian was like, you're a good wrestler. Hey, you can come work for me whenever you want. So Cabana would go work, you know, every Saturday and like every Wednesday. I think he did that over the summer, and then I got brought in like in September. So Cabana was working at IWA before me. And then the same thing, I worked Cabana, and Cabana was like, I'm really gonna put you over, we're gonna have this great match, and you know, he's gonna love you, and blah, blah, blah. And I guess the rest is just history. Ian said the same thing to me. Wow, you're a good worker. And my match was terrible with Cabana, it was so bad. Like, looking back on it now, like, you know, back then we were like, yeah, what's up, you know, like, but yeah, I mean, it is a very, very bouncy ring, and it's just different, you know, like my first match for IWA was like outside, because they were evicted from the building they were in because they set somebody on fire or something, I don't know. But yeah, I just remember going down there and like meeting Chris Hero for the first time, BJ Whitmer, Suicide Kid, stuff like that.
Now, how'd you end up as one of the Gold Bond Mafia members?
The Gold Bond Mafia was started by the Don of Gold Bond, Colt Cabana, because he had a friend in college who, I guess, for lack of a better story, Cabana can tell this a lot better. Kid always had, you know, the green medicated Gold Bond powder, and kid's always putting it on his balls. Cabana's like, what are you doing? And kid's like, no, try it. And Cabana thought it was a big rip, you know. I remember this. Cabana's like, no, I'm not doing that. When he finally did it, he was like, this is amazing. Punk, you gotta try this. I'm not trying that. Why would I put that shit on my balls? That's ridiculous. It's red. I'm not doing that. And, you know, and then so on and down the line. I think it was either me or Prazak who came up with the name Gold Bond Mafia. I could totally be wrong on that, and it could have been Cabana, I don't know. But the original members of the Gold Bond Mafia are me, Chucky Smooth, Colt Cabana, and Dave Prazak. Adam Pierce is a total bandwagon jumper, and he saw what a good thing it was, and he just wanted in, you know. Actually, Adam Pierce renounced the Gold Bond at first too, because he thought it was a rib as well, but refused for the longest time to try it. So, you know, but then when he tried it, it became like the big thing. We carried Gold Bond to the ring, and you know, that would be our powder, honestly, and it was just.
What should actually do for people that don't know what you're talking about?
I don't know, man. Gold Bond, you put and get the medicated kind. Don't get the blue. That's like foot powder. Don't get the white. That's baby powder. Don't get the yellow. I don't really actually think the yellow does a damn thing. But the green medicated Gold Bond powder, and I actually recommend lotion. But start off with the powder. You gotta kind of you gotta ease into this. But I guess people put like baby powder on to keep you fresh and stuff like that all day long. But it's like the equivalent of like icy hot. It's just like, I don't know, man. Feels like somebody's just blowing on your nuts. You know, you just kind of got to sit there and chill out. I got some in my bag right now. I'll always have Gold Bond in my bag. Thank you, Colt Cabana.
What's the story of the Gold Bond Mafia at the Comic-Con?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? That's how the Gold Bond Mafia was born. That's how that whole thing started. There was a guy, Tim Lyle, and he was a promoter out of Chicago. And since he was a promoter in Chicago, he was atrocious. But work was work, and we had done some crazy triple shot. I think we wound up working a Thursday in Detroit, like a Friday in Ohio maybe, and then drove down to Ian Saturday night, and then drove up. No sleep. We're all fucked up. We're all hurt and banged up because I'm still trying to do all kinds of flips and all this dumb shit. And we're all in a car. We're all crabby. We all hate each other because it's 3 days, and everyone's just all ornery and pissed off. And I can get you booked on the Comic-Con, but I can't. No pay. But if well, that's fine because I've been a comic mark since I was a kid. I just wanted to get in free anyway. And it was like we got there. This is the first time I met Mike Quackenbush, and it was supposed to be like a tag with like me, Cabana, Chucky, and Quack somehow. The guy Tim Lyle didn't want to do that. Like, he changed it, and then like wrestling it was like just an attraction at the Comic-Con. It was like wrestling every half hour on the hour, So it was just matches all day long. So he comes and he goes, "Okay, I got you wrestling this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy," and I'm looking at him like. I love wrestling, but like this sucks. Like I had to sit there and listen to Tim Lyle tell me how he's been in the business for 15 years and how I've always been a Russian, and it's always worked. People hate Russians, and I was just like, I don't want your life story. I just So I was already in the Comic-Con, and me and Chucky were beat up, and like Cabana goes out and Cabana like tries to have a really good match with this one kid. It doesn't work. So me and Chucky are like, fuck it, we're doing comedy. We're beat up, we're tired. I mean, literally, like, no sleep, man, no sleep at all. So me and Chucky go out there, and we did I shot him in the ropes, and I dropped down, and I got up, duck, 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 duck. Like, he just ducked until he blew up, which back then was actually not that long for Chucky. And when he stopped, he was all blown up, and he doubled over, and and we double poked each other in the eye, double bump. Like when we started doing midget spots. Like Chucky would cover me and I'd kick him off into the ref, but the ref didn't know, so we just fall on the ref. And Chucky bit me in the ass, and I told the ref and lock up. He bit me in the ass again. Finally, he bit the ref in the ass, and we just had this hilarious comedy match, which ended in Prazak running out. And like I remember telling him this, yeah, dude, comedy match. You come out. Throw such an ungodly amount of powder, and it was Gold Bond. I mean, empty the entire thing in your hand, and then just throw it. And we covered the entire ring in Gold Bond, and like both sold, and we were just having fun, And we got back, and Tim Lyle, the grizzled veteran that he is, what do you call that? And I call it comedy. I'm kind of beat up. Well, no, I mean that's That's like a disgrace. Dude, why is it a disgrace? Like, 5 minutes ago watched some kid go out and like break his sternum doing like a fucking, like the Rikishi thing, and you know, nobody cared about that, and people were like electric for our crappy comedy bite me in the ass spot, you know, like, and he was just yelling and yelling and yelling, and then I was like, well, what's my next match? And he's like, I don't know, I gotta shuffle stuff around. And then he took us all off the show, which was fine with us. We didn't really care anyway. Mission accomplished. I walked around the Comic Con, you know, and that's how the Gold Bond Mafia was born. And then they lost their tag belts and accused us of stealing them. And just stupid.
Did Ian ever want you to do death matches at the time?
No. Ian never asked me to do like anything with like light tubes or fire or glass or baby piranhas or, you know, anything like that. I did a Texas death match with Ian for Mid-America Wrestling.
Right. You never bladed either in IWA in South, correct?
No. I was supposed to once, and I lost my blade. Yeah, the Chris Hero, I think the tables and ladders thing, I don't know if anybody's, if you've seen that match, if you've seen any match from the House of Hardcore, look at the floor on that place. And I remember there was one part where I'm on the floor, and I get my blade, and Chris Hero hits me with a chair, and I drop my blade, and I'm on the floor going, oh, there's my blade, and I'm picking it up, and I go, what the fuck am I doing? And I threw it, because I obviously touched the floor, I wasn't going to do it, you know, like, no, I've never bladed in IWA. I got hardweight once by a headbutt.
Huh. What did you think of Ian Rotten as a booker?
We have a saying, or we had a saying. Yeah, I guess the saying is still true, but it's no longer mine. I no longer work for Ian. 420 booking. We would get phone calls and emails and IMs on the computer at like, you know, 4 in the morning because Ian was 420. And Ian was self-medicating himself. Just ridiculous stuff, ridiculous ideas, you know, like, oh, you know, I want you guys, you're going to have this awesome match. And it's how some of the matches came about, like the 8-man elimination tag that was supposed to go an hour draw, you know, like that's 420 booking, you know. It was August 9th or 11th or something like that, and it was 100 degrees outside. It was like 110 in the building and like 130 in the ring, no lie. And we were supposed to go an hour draw, and like, you know, Christ, you know, you can only be high when you come up with something like that, you know. But I think he's a good booker. I know it's his favorite thing to do, so he's gonna try his hardest at it. But just like anybody else, Ian had his bad ideas and he had his really good ideas, you know. And then he learned to trust certain people enough, so they come up with stuff, and he learned how to protect certain guys and, you know, how to put other guys over and stuff like that. But his main thing was always putting over IWA, which he did phenomenally. You know, he would always make sure his company name and like his product got over. So, you know, there's worse bookers out there, definitely.
What do you think of Ian as a businessman?
Not so good. Not such a good businessman. And it's nothing personal, but it's business. I don't think he'll do whatever he has to do to make money at the time to make a quick buck. I don't think he budgets too well sometimes. I think he needs to advertise a lot more than he does, so he actually gets a return on some of his shows. Just stuff like that. Nothing too outlandish. It's a lot of it's stuff that any promoter could do more of, like advertising and stuff. But for a while, he was doing no advertising. He was drawing stuff based on like the internet, you know. And it was like we were shocked when he had like really huge crowds and stuff like that.
Do you think you get a bad stigma attached to you if you're known as the IWA Mid-South guy?
Well, I know you get a bad stigma attached because I'm not allowed anywhere near an OVW show or the OVW building. But that's no skin off my nose, you know.
Speaking of Jim Cornette, what do you think about his tirades against IWA Mid-South?
I've been on record saying that I agree with Cornette, but that I also agree with Ian. And my stance on the whole subject is, you know, I'm not the middleman. Obviously, I'm not trying to defend either one. I met Cornette for the first time like 2-3 weeks ago, and he was awesome to me. You know, he was totally nice. The heat with Cornette and Ian is that Ian got pro wrestling thrown out of armories in Kentucky, which cost Jim Cornette a lot of money because Cornette ran a series of shows. Like, you know, he had probably a different town with an armory in it, you know, every week, and that cost him money because, you know, oh, pro wrestling. Well, we had those IWA guys in here, and they scratched up the floor, and there's still blood on the basketball hoop, and we're missing light tubes, and you know, stuff like that. So it was a business decision of the armories to say, okay, well, no more pro wrestling because we have this damaged floor and this and that. And like I said, cost Jim Cornette a lot of money, which would piss off anybody, you know. So Cornette says IWA isn't wrestling. I disagree because I wrestled Eddie Guerrero there. There is wrestling in IWA. It's just better known for the deathmatch stuff, you know. And I agree with Cornette when he says, you know, I think he specifically made a comment recently saying that the 93-minute match, you know, he hears about the 93-minute match and guys going an hour draw, and obviously he's talking about me and Chris Hero. You know, well, that's great, but how come Ian doesn't promote the shit out of that? And it's just, you know, come watch this guy hit this guy in the head with something, a fan made, you know, like a baseball bat with spikes through it, or a Christmas tree with, you know, thumbtacks in it, or, you know, stuff like that. So it's a completely viable argument in my mind, you know, and it's just Ian just attacks OVW and says OVW is shitty. Whatever.
Why did you actually break off your association with Ian?
Well, I'm in a position where I can. I mean, back in the day, you know, coming down and working for Ian for no pay and having him go, hey, I'll get you next week, and, you know, hey, I'll pay you later, and hey, the house is light, you know, or, oh, you did a really good job today, you know, I'll try to give you something extra next time, you know, that flew back in the day, but a lot of it now is I make a lot more money elsewhere, so that's the business part. But the main reason is his use, in my opinion, his disrespect of Chris Hero, trying to bring in Nick Gage. Actually, he did bring in Nick Gage for his King of the Deathmatch tournament. And Hero sacrificed a lot, and he still does for Ian. You know, Hero worked for Ian every single weekend, unless, you know, he got permission pretty much to work somewhere else, or if he had something really big that he couldn't pass up. And he's not really getting repaid for it, you know. I mean, Ian lost his billing, so Ian doesn't run every weekend now, so Hero is now left with no place to work pretty much, you know. It's kind of Hero's own fault too. But I mean, I love him to death, and I didn't like seeing him disrespected like that. Like, here's a guy, Nick Gage, who when Hero worked CZW, I don't know if he was told to do it or what, but I mean, he shit all over Hero, you know. He cut out like his entire heat, and it was a tag match, and then after the match beat him up with chairs, which obviously wasn't called. And Hero, I love him to death. It's just too nice of a guy to say or do anything about it. So you can beat me up with chairs, and you can make fun of me, and you can talk shit about me on the internet. I don't really care. But when you make fun of or you do those things with my friends, it really pisses me off, especially like a guy like Chris Hero, who, you know, who's one of my best friends. So I took it upon myself because I was in a position, and I just couldn't let it slide, and I was like, well, I'm not working for you anymore, Ian. And he seems to think that I went about it the wrong way. I did an interview and said, no, you know, the person asked me, and I said, no, I'm not going to be at that show, and in fact, I'm not working for IWA anymore. And just because I didn't say it to Ian first, it's no skin off my nose. He didn't ask me if it was okay if he brought in Nick Gage, you know. So there really was, I mean, he didn't see the writing on the wall either. It was like the last show I worked for him, Ian grabs the mic and says, hey everybody, I don't know if you know this, but you know, Punk's moving to Philadelphia and he's gonna be starting up the Ring of Honor training school. And Ian in the ring was basically like, so he's not gonna be around a whole lot. And I was like, well, thanks, Ian. Like he just assumed that I wasn't gonna be coming around anymore. So that was kind of like another part of it. And there's so many other things. My time has come and gone there. I've done everything. And I want to work other places and I want to work other people. And yeah, it is far away, and you know, Ian probably wouldn't buy me a plane ticket, and it was just like so many things, and it was just, you know, weigh my options, and I stood up for Chris Hero, you know, so that's like the heart of the reason, is like the whole Nick Gage CZW thing.
Speaking of Chris, you had some great matches with him. Any memories that stand out? Or we could talk about your famous 93-minute match.
Well, I'll start at the beginning. The first match me and Chris Hero ever had is terrible. We completely ruined the main event, because the main event for the show was supposed to be Suicide Kid. Well, it was Suicide Kid versus Jerry Lynn, and it was supposed to go like 20-minute Broadway. You know, me and Chris Hero went like a half hour. First match, first time we worked each other, and it was the first match on the show, and it was bad, like really bad. And then, because I think he was the heel and I was the babyface, which is obviously the wrong thing to do, but that's just the way it rolled downhill. I think we had a couple tags after that, and then when we really clicked was when I think won the IWA belt off him, I think in Indianapolis. He was big babyface, and I was just the monster heel, because I don't do drugs, people hate me. And I think from there, we rolled and just clicked, and everything we've done since then has been, in my opinion, has been good, at least. He's a guy that I've never been nervous working. I'm like totally comfortable in there. We've had matches where we've never called a thing, and we go in there, and we just, it's kind of like when the announcers are putting it over, saying, "Oh, these guys know each other, you know, inside and out, and they know what the next move each other's going to do." It's actually true. You know, I mean, I know I've trained with them. We did the Dave Taylor, you know, camp, trained with Fit Finley, and I think just we both have such an enormous love for the sport, and it's just on our minds constantly. It's like pro wrestling, pro wrestling, pro wrestling, and that's all we ever wanted to do, and that's all we do, you know. And I just think that's why we always click so much, you know.
What made you guys want to do the 93-minute match?
Well, we did 55 minutes in the tables and ladders thing, and that was supposed to be the big blow off to our feud. That match pretty much turned me babyface. I didn't think it would be anywhere near as good as it was. I remember it was already like midnight in that building. It was the last show in that building, and me and Hero were just kind of like me in Cabana, Minnesota. I said, "Well, screw it, dude. Let's go all out. You know, this is the big blow off to our feud. So let's give the people everything. They're gonna remember this building. You know, let's make them remember it because of me and you." So I remember my music's playing. I grab my belt. It was actually pretty emotional too, because Prezek's father had just died. He just passed away from cancer. So like it was like a weekend without Prezek, which was unheard of. It was just like it never happened, and it was just like everyone was kind of sitting around like, man, we really miss Dave. So you know, I wrote Prezek on one hand, and I'm always doing like, you know, the paying respects to people and stuff like that on my wrist tape. That's what the cool kids do, is write stuff on their wrist tape. And I remember I was about to chug to the ring, and Ian runs in and goes, Punkster, Punk, how long are you guys going? It's already like midnight. Ian, I swear, it's not going to be longer than 20 minutes. It went 55. It was just one of those things, is with me and Hero, it was just, I sound kind of weird saying it, but it was like, there was just something about that night. It was just, I remember standing in the ring and looking up at the belt, which was like attached to a rafter, which was probably about to fall over because it was in an old barn, and just going, man, this is like, it was just like magical, you know. And I've never really wanted to wrestle in Madison Square Garden. I've never, you know, stuff like that. But like that night, it was just like everything came together, and we just had, you know, what a lot of people were calling it. Well, this is the best match I've ever seen, which I think is a little outlandish, but from there, you know, we stayed away from each other for a while. We wrestled each other, I think, once the following year. And then I was staying down there for a couple weeks. It was after I got laid off of my real world job, which is probably a funny story I'll tell later in the interview. I was staying down in Kentucky at Wrestling House, Indiana, which is what we call Chris Hero and Mark Wolf's apartment. And like, I went to Hero, I said, dude, you know no one's gonna be at this show. You know, like, Smart Mark wasn't gonna be there, so it wasn't, you know, it wasn't really getting filmed, and there wasn't really gonna be any distribution. And it was just one of those things. It was like the next week, or like the next week was like the big show. So like this one, like people were obviously going to save their money, spend the money on the tickets for the big show, and pretty much not come to this one. And I just remember Ian going, well, it's going to be you and Hero, and you know, I don't want to, you know, I don't know what we can do for a finish, because, you know, he's going to drop, or you're going to drop the belt to him, you know, in like the anniversary show of your 55-minute tables and ladders. And then I just went, well, let's wrestle for an hour. And Ian just looked at me, really? I said, yeah. I said, yeah, no offense, Ian. I'm like, there's not going to be a whole lot of people here, and whether I wrestle for 2 minutes or an hour, I'm still going to get paid the same, and I might as well have fun, you know? And so Hero was totally down with the idea, and, you know, we did the hour draw, which got some press on the internet, and I just think masterfully, brilliantly and tremendously set up for the 93-minute match, which went, you know, an hour and a half, 2 out of 3 falls, and of course that went to a draw too. And then big babyface Chris Hero finally gets his pinfall victory over CM Punk after 2 years. That's how that all started, you know, just brainstorming.
Memories of the Ted Petty Invitational, where you wrestled BJ in the finals.
Probably the single best wrestling that I've ever done in one night. My first night match with M-Dog 20. I love M-Dog. He's a great friend of mine. I'm straight edge, just like me. I have much love for him. That match was horrible. So I came back with a vengeance. Like the second night, I worked Chris Daniels, first match that I had the second night, and still one of my favorite matches. And then I worked Hero, and we had another great match, which could have gone either way in the fans' eyes. And then it came down to me and BJ, and I think everybody was just like, "Oh, Punk's gonna win," you know. Hero won the first year, Ace won the second year, now it's Punk, blah blah blah. And I think we got him. We swerved him, you know, and BJ went over. And I just remember being beat up like really bad. The match with Hero is where I got hard-weighted with a headbutt. I still got a scar on the top of my head because of it, right in my hairline. It was, I mean, I was gushing pretty good, and just like loss of blood. And I remember my neck and my head were still really, really achy and goofed up, because that was only like a couple months after I came back from my skull fracture. So the whole night my head was spinning pretty bad, and like, you know, I was getting disoriented and stuff like that. And I think I work better when I'm hurt, and it was just an instance where I think I really pulled through, and I had 3 really good matches, you know. And BJ was hurt. He got knocked out by Cabana or something like that, so he had no idea where we were. And I think a lot of matches happen better when it's called the ring, because you get to react to what's happening. You're not following any kind of a script, and it's more emotional. And that's, I mean, me and Hero didn't call anything. Me and BJ didn't call anything, because he wouldn't have remembered it. I said, "Hey BJ, how about if we do this? Boom, boom, boom." "Yeah, okay. Damn, what? And you know, and it was a situation like that. So I was just like, "You're gonna come to the ring, and I'm gonna dive on you, and then we'll go from there." And then, you know, that was it.
What was it like working with Eddie and Rey Mysterio in IWA?
Fucking awesome. Fucking Eddie Guerrero is the man. Best wrestler in the world. Yeah, that was really cool. I was really fortunate to be able to work them in a 3-way dance. And in between Eddie's stints with the WWF, I got to work him like 4 or 5 times. You know, Key worked him, I think Quackenbush worked him. A couple other people got to work him, but I got to work him like 4 or 5 times. Yay for me. I learned so much just working him like the first night, you know. A lot of, like, when you work like vets, you know, they don't know who the hell you are, and they're looking at you like, you know, it's half the time they're like, I just want to make through this match and I don't want to get hurt, you know. And I think Eddie probably had a little bit of that going, and you know, he trusts Ray with his life, but he didn't know me from Adam's house cat, so he was just like, I hate three-way dances, you know, if you can just, you know, help me out there. And I was just like, yeah, okay, girl, I'll help you, you know. So me and Ray actually put together the whole match, and Eddie loved it, and that was probably one of the crowning achievements of my career right now. Is just like, I watched that match, and it looks like I belong in the ring with those two guys. And those guys, worlds better than I'll ever be. They're superstars. You know, Eddie Guerrero's wrestling's in his blood. You know, I mean, he was born into a great wrestling family, and he's so awesome. And you know, Ray, probably one of the best high flyers of all time. And it's just to be able to compete and to keep up with them in the ring, you know, and it was just awesome. Taking that frog splash was awesome. You know, it was just a great thing. And then the second night where I worked Eddie in the singles match, God, did he run me, man. He blew me up, but he was like, Punky, keep going, Punky, keep going. And I just remember him going, okay, I know a couple things you do. He's like, you mind if we just go out there and wrestle tonight? Because he was going through like his divorce, and you know, his DUI stuff was still going on, and he was all discombobulated, and, you know, and he was staying and has stayed clean since then. And you know, I still talk to him. I talk to him maybe once or twice a month. You know, we keep in touch. It's not just me hounding him and calling him. He'll call me and check up on me and stuff like that. And, you know, he's always like, I'm still clean, man. You know, and it's just, I just remember him. We were eating at a truck stop in somewhere in Joliet, Illinois, and he looks at my knuckles and he's like, drug. Oh, drug free. He's like, oh, God bless you, brother. You know, he's like, I need to hang out with you. You know, he's like, you're kind of people I need to hang out with. And that's just awesome, man. Like one of your heroes says that to you. You know, somebody you look up to, you know, is asking you for help and stuff like that. It's just fucking awesome.
Describe what happened actually. You talked about it for a second when you actually broke your skull. How did that come about?
It may or may not have any. I think I had like a mild concussion from the night before. I worked a tournament in Chicago against Vic Capri, and I gave him a rana like to the outside, and he fell over with me, and my head hit the floor, and it was goofed up from that. But what happened was I do like a corkscrew blockbuster out of the corner, like if a guy shoots me in, stop myself, give him an elbow, hit the corner, corkscrew, and give him the thing. I was working Reckless Youth, and it was a combination of Reckless Youth, I think, took maybe half a step out. I didn't commit to, like, my corkscrew kind of came out weird, and when I hooked him for the neck breaker, it brought his head directly down on top of mine, and it hit the mat at the same time, so it was just like, boom. And immediately I felt like everything, like my neck and this side, like my ear, and like my collarbone, like it felt like somebody like poured hot wax. And no, I don't know actually what that feels like, so that's a bad analogy. It's everything, you know, like heated up, and I was like, wow, okay, great, way to go, Punk, you just broke your neck. And I wrestled for like another 8 minutes or something like that, and it just progressively gets worse and worse and worse. Like in the match, you see, boom, it happens. I just kind of shake it off like that. Geez, that sucks. And I just keep wrestling. And then as the match goes on, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And my head's pounding and pounding. And at the end of the match, when I use the chair as a walker to get out of the ring, it's a total shoot. I could only take baby steps, and it felt like somebody had their foot on my head, like trying to get me to, you know, go to the floor. And it just felt like gravity was just like smashing me, and like I went through the curtain, I hit the floor, and I couldn't get up. All I knew was if my head was on the floor, I was comfortable and I was fine. The floor was cold, it was like nice and it was soothing. Everybody kept, you know, hey, are you okay? And I was like, just get away from me. I got really claustrophobic, everything started spinning. People were just dumping water on my back.
Was this at JCW?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I believe I was in a crumpled heap, and you asked me about working for Ring of Honor, and then I threw up.
Huh.
Yeah, and then I just started throwing up, and everyone's like, go to the hospital, you know, and I'm like, I'm fine, I just, you know, I'm just sick, it just hurt, you know, I don't know what, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, Cabana's asking me all kinds of questions. What's your dog's name? You know, what's your birthday? You know, stupid shit like that. What's my birthday? I don't know your birthday, Cabana, shut up, you know? And then they called an ambulance, and I got thrown in an ambulance. Cabana went with me. Like, light started to hurt my eyes, and just, got to the hospital. They had pillows over my eyes, and all I hear is the doc come in, well, they gave me like x-rays, CAT scans, MRIs, all this junk, and the doc comes in and just goes, well, you fractured your skull. And I just hear Cabana go, what? And I started laughing just because I couldn't believe it. I was miserable. I was still in soaking wet gimmicks because when people were dumping water on me after the match, I still got my boots on, and I'm laying belly up on this gurney. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, I fractured my skull? Wow, that fucking sucks. And as I'm contemplating like what this means, like, you know, I'm going, well, cool, I don't gotta go to work on Monday, you know, but damn, I'm not gonna be able to wrestle, am I? Now I'll be able to wrestle. Now I'll be fine. I hear, okay, we're gonna shoot you up with some morphine, and I feel him like put the tap in my vein, and I'm like hell you are, man, true till death. And I slugged like the orderly, shoot me up with morphine, in which I later found out that Cabana, I thought I got him in my state of euphoria. I was like, I just jacked that guy, that's right. Cabana's like, man, it was the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. He's like, you were laying on the bed and you just did this to the guy. And the guy was just looking at you.
All right. After your injury, how hard mentally was it for you to handle it?
Well, next day in the hospital, Cabana stayed the night with me, and he was really cool. And you know, I just remember, you know, asking like the docs, I was like, well, what do I do? You know, like, how do I take care of this? And there's like, oh, there's nothing you can do. You have to rest. That's it. It's not like they put a Band-Aid on it. They can't, you know, go in and fix it or anything like that. It was just one of those things that, you know, time heals. So, and the doc says, well, we're going to keep you a week for observation. I said, why? I said, I'm fine. I got a fractured skull. I just got to rest. He's like, no, we're going to keep you a week for observation. Plus, we don't really think, you know, if you fly, like the change in, you know, altitude and pressure and stuff like that, that'll probably really hurt. I'm like, well, I don't feel so good right now anyway. And the doctor was like, here's some pain pills. And I was like, no, I don't want pain pills, you know. I don't want anything. They gave me like this big bottle of pain pills, and I just flushed them out of the toilet. I was like, can I check myself out? And the doctor's like, well, yeah, I guess technically, you know, you're up and about, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, fine. So I checked myself out. Went to the hotel that night and ate a big pizza. And the doctor told me not to do anything strenuous for a year. Like, I was like, I can't even work out. He's like, no, I don't suggest it. I think I was in the ring 2 months later, just because I didn't know what to do with myself, you know. This is where I'm going to put over my best friend, Ches. I got back to Chicago, and yes, flying on the plane hurt like hell. It was like the most mind-numbing pain I've ever felt in my life. But, like, I didn't even fathom, like, you know, not wrestling for a year. It never entered my mind. It was just like, well, I'll look at my calendar, and I'll cancel this, and this. Ian Sweet Science Ted Petty thing is in September. I'll wrestle then. And it happened June 15th, so I was playing June, July, August. So I was planning on being out for like 3 months, which, thinking back on it now, is pretty stupid from the severity of my injury. I got back to Chicago. My friend Ches came to my apartment. I didn't have air conditioning in my apartment. It's the middle of summer. It's hot as hell. I'm uncomfortable, you know. But surprising, I was like, man, you know, I feel all right for having a fractured skull. I'm like, I don't understand, you know, like nothing, it just really, really hurts. Like, you know, bright light hurt, loud noises hurt. I can't look at a computer screen. I can't talk on the phone, stuff like that. So Ches came over, and the plan was to always go back to the burbs and stay at her parents' house, because parents have central air conditioning, and pretty much their family, I'm a part of their family, you know. Ches has got 2 little sisters that I've known since they were 5, and they're my little sisters, you know, and that was just always the idea. So it was like, well, okay, you know, go to work, and then I'll just, you know, she took the bus to work, and I was like, well, I'll pick you up. I picked her up, and it's like when I got in the car to pick her up is when shit started I start freaking out. Like, I'm driving and I'm going, whoa, this is weird. Like, all of a sudden, like, it felt like I was going really fast and then really slow, and it felt like I was in a fishbowl. Like, I wandered into some place to get some food, and like my ex-girlfriend's working behind the counter, and now I'm thinking I'm just freaking out. I'm like, you know, and she's like, you don't look so good. And I was just like, I fractured my skull. Like, and she's like, are you sure you should be? I'm like, I'm falling over, and like, and then I get in my car and I pick up Ches, and Ches is like, you don't look so good. And I'm like, I'm fine. And I'm like, you know, pale as shit. I got to her place. I fell asleep. I woke up 24 hours later. You know, I slept at least 20 hours a day for 2 weeks. I barely ate anything. I drank Gatorade. I got like this nasty skull fracture beard going on, and like it was just like a mess. I slept in my little sister Cassie's room because it was like in the middle of the house with like central air, blinds drawn, no TV, phone unplugged, and it was like literally I was like completely shut off from like the outside world. It was just, and that's what really got to me. It was just like I would wake up and I didn't know what, like, did not know what day it was. I would look at the clock, and since it was so pitch black, I'd be like 3:21. Well, is it 3:21 in the morning or 3:21 in the afternoon? I like had no idea, you know. And like, you know, the calls are coming in. Everyone's trying to call my cell phone, you know, to see how I am. I wasn't gonna tell my dad because it would just freak him out. Plus, it was like it happened on Father's Day, and then he found out because of the stupid internet. And it was just, that's when it became like mentally tough. Because I remember one time I woke up and I was like passed out in Chez's foyer with like one shoe on because apparently I tried to go to the gym or something stupid like that. You know, I don't remember like half the stuff, and like, you know, like really I would just fall asleep and wake up a day or two later, you know. And I remember like the one day when I woke up and I finally had an appetite. Like I ate 2 boxes of cereals, like a box of Weetables, like a half gallon of milk, like all this fruit. And like Chez's mom was so happy. She's like, yeah, Phil's back, you know, he's got his appetite back, you know. And like, I think another thing that really messed me up was like when I fractured my skull, somehow my spinal column filled with blood, and it completely, my back was stiff as a board. I couldn't touch my toes. I couldn't, you know, I couldn't move, and so it was really uncomfortable to do anything but lay down. You know, I just laid there. It was like the dude in Johnny Go Get Your Gun, the Metallica wrote one about. You know, it's like I had arms and legs, sure, but it was like pitch black, and I couldn't open my eyes, and I couldn't talk because it hurt. And but once everything started coming around, I started feeling better. It only really started to hurt, and I really started getting disoriented when like I would do anything strenuous. You know, like I remember the first time I went to the gym, I was dumbbell pressing for shoulders, dumbbell pressing like 20 pounds, and it was killing me. Like I'd get it above my head and just be like, whoa. So it was mentally challenging, but like I didn't even hear, you know, don't wrestle for a year. I didn't even hear that. That was just, you know, that didn't make any sense to me. There's no way I'd be able to do that.
How hard was it to get back in the ring? And when you got back in the ring, did you change your style at all?
Well, Ian canceled, surprise, surprise, canceled the Ted Petty thing and postponed it till November of that year, which probably worked out for the better because I was in no condition to work. But then a weekend before the Ted Petty was supposed to be the first week of September, I got a call, whichever it is, Memorial Day or Labor Day, like August 31st and like September 1st and 2nd. I got a call from Carmine. He's like, hey, how you feeling? Can you work? Yeah, sure, I'll work, you know, whatever. And I came back that weekend. So from June 15th to August 31st is how long I was out. But I was still feeling effects of my skull fracture well into like February, like the next year. So I don't think I've changed my style. I think I was on the verge of changing my style anyway. You know, I was doing less high-flying stuff and more like kind of like a Japanese influenced like striking stuff. And like, you know, I certainly didn't change anything about my style because of my fractured skull. In fact, one of the first things I did in my return match, I hit the corkscrew blockbuster just because I had to. It was one of those things, you know. I just had to, you know, I just had to do it. You know, I didn't tell anybody I was going to do it. I told Chucky, obviously, but because Chucky Smooth was the first guy I worked when I came back, and I did that, and I was happy, you know. And then it was like a slow, burn, learning how to work again, and like, you know, getting my head back to where it needed to be.
Now, did you work for Normal Connors and you worked Colt and you hit your head again, or was that something different?
Yeah, yeah. That was in October, and the spot me and Cabana used to do all the time, that I'm never doing again with him because he dumped me on my head, and I thought for sure that I broke my head again, but it turns out I didn't. But run off the apron, give him a rana, and he just let me go, or you know, something happened. Right? It was too heavy, I don't know, and I hit my head. Yeah, it was pretty scary, and then the fans wound up thinking it was a work, but it wasn't. It like I was all screwed up, like rolling in the ring and rolling out of the ring, and like, you know, and the Cabana didn't know what to do, and he, you know, we're communicating through the ref, and then eventually, like, I felt pretty okay, and then I got mad, and I started beating on Cabana, like, pretty bad, because I was, like, generally pissed, you know. I was like, my head, fool, you know. But yeah, that wasn't so good.
Memories of your first trip to Philly. You worked for 3PW.
My first trip to Philly. Yet another stupid story. This is rib. It's me, Cabana, and Prazak. I have a good friend of mine who lives and works in Chicago and gives me hookups on rental cars. So we got a rental, and I think we just drove to Philly. We drove straight to Philly, got to Philly at like 6 in the morning. I did most of the driving. I'd never been to Philly, and I'm an adventurous person, so I was like, well, cool, you know, let's goof off, let's do something. Prazak and Cabana slept in the car while I walked up and down South Street, like just, you know, shopping and checking stuff out. And every hour or so I'd have to walk back and feed the meter and look in, and they were still sleeping. Worked the show. What was it? Me, Cabana, and
Paulie Norris?
Paulie Norris against Rick Blade and Joey Matthews and Christian York. And like Prazak winds up getting bumped and getting a concussion. Paulie Norris gets his face smashed by fuck ass Rick Blade. I'm relatively okay. I just haven't slept yet because I did most of the driving. And we're supposed to drive back because we're doing a Mid-America show at 4 in the afternoon in Milwaukee on Sunday. So it's like, show's over, get in the car, start driving. Cabana, Punk, are you okay to drive? Yeah, I'm fine, I'm wired from the show, you know, I'm gonna drive for a couple hours and you're gonna have to take over because I did most of the driving on the way here. Okay, bro, I'm driving, I fall asleep. Smack into another car. You know, I like wake up, I'm like, holy shit, fuck. Cabana wakes up, what happened, bro? What happened? I just hit another car. All right. Falls right back to sleep. The guy who I hit was really, really cool. He was like going to work, and he was making jokes about how, oh, at least I don't have to go to work now, and ha ha ha, and you know, stuff like that. And it was freezing cold and windy on the Ohio Turnpike, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm really sorry. There wasn't like a whole lot there was no damage done to the rental, which I, you know, was pissed about because I had insurance on it and it didn't really matter. I think that the rental lost a hubcap, and like I dented the guy's bumper a little bit. And for like the way I hit him and like everything, it was like, we were very lucky. So a cop came, you know, and I got a ticket, all this crap, you know, blah, blah, blah. Prazak and Cabana are sleeping in the fucking car the whole time. I jump back in the car, close the door, collect myself. I'm like, fuck. All right. Okay, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it to Milwaukee. We're gonna pull up right at like 4 o'clock, but we're gonna make it. Cabana, Punk, let me drive. No, man, there ain't no way I'm falling asleep after that bullshit. Start driving. I see Cabana watching me. I'm like, dude, I'm fine. Seriously, I'm like so freaked out right now. You know, I'm like, look at me, I'm shaking. Cabana falls back to sleep. I fall back asleep, like instantly. In 5 minutes, I just crashed our car. 5 minutes, I start swerving. Cabana finally fucking cracks me in the back of the head. I pull over, and Cabana drove, and I jumped in the back seat and slept. Finally, yay for me.
As far as 3PW goes, what did you think of the way it was?
3PW was cool. I kind of looked around, like, you know, Todd Gordon and like couple people, and I was kind of like, well, this probably won't last. Everyone's just gonna try to get their money out of it, but you know, at least I'm here, and you know, I was friends with Meanie, and I thought it was cool that he used us, and I was grateful. You know, it got me my first East Coast exposure. I think I worked one other show after that, and then after that, it pretty much went downhill. But I liked 3PW. It was cool. You know, I just remember Meanie asking me not to work, and it wasn't even please don't work for Ring of Honor. It was, you know, I look at you as a 3PW guy. Please don't work for Feinstein. Like he had some vendetta, and I straight up told him no to his face. I was like, nah, I work for whoever, whenever, you know, for whatever money. Work is work, you know, and that's how that all turned sour.
Now, did you and Jasmine have a falling out or something? Because I read somewhere that she said she wouldn't work on a show you were on.
You can't have a falling out with somebody if you don't really know them and you're not friends with them to begin with. But I have no real heat with Jasmine. It's just the way I word things sometimes, and I'm a big internet nerd, and I have my live journal commentary, which apparently gets me into trouble more often than not. Which I didn't even really think anybody read, you know. And I just, it's not that I hate Jasmine, because that's a strong word. It's not like she's on my list or anything. It's just, I just always thought she was creepy. I thought she was creepy looking. I thought, why are you in the wrestling business? You know, she was really touchy-feely, and she'd always be like, Punk, what do you think of that girl over there? And I'd be like, well, I think she looks like a whore. What about that girl over there? Ah, your stripper friend. Yeah, she's a whore too. What about that one over there? Hey, did you do a porno with her? Yeah, she's a whore as well. You know, like I would go to these shows and she would try to like set me up with her friends and stuff like that. I just always thought that was weird. And yeah, I remember her asked Allison Danger, you know, what do you think of Punk? Well, I think Punk's a big fucking asshole, but he's a good worker. No, but like, do you think girls will come to the show because of him? Like, she's got a warped sense of what like the business is. And it's not like I was ever best friends with her. I was never even really friends with her. Like, I guess, you know, 3PW is her thing more than it's Meanie's or it's the both of theirs or whatever. But the main thing is, I called her Jasmine St. Hooker. And it really meant nothing to me. And then she issued a statement to somebody from One Wrestling, and they posted it, and it was a headline. This is why I think I'm famous. This is funny. Stuff like this, you know. She said that she was supposed to work on a Revolution Championship wrestling show with me in LaSalle, Illinois, and she said she pulled herself from the show because I called her Jasmine St. Hooker, and the locker room wouldn't be a safe environment for her to work in. And once again, what I said to rebuttal on that wasn't meant anything malicious. It was just kind of meant as like a matter of fact thing, like, well, because I called you Jasmine St. Hooker means you can't work in this company because it's unsafe, but you can have, you know, 200 some odd dicks shoved in you in a matter of 15 minutes, and that's a safe working environment. Like, you know, priorities, girl, you know. So, you know, I came back with that, and there's no heat between me and Jasmine. To have heat with somebody, there has to be some sort of an issue, and there is no issue. I just tell it like it is. You know, she probably hates me, and I can give a fuck about her.
Opinion of CZW. You worked one match there.
I got friends who work at CZW, like Jimmy Rave, and that's probably actually, it sounds a lot more harsh than I actually mean it to be, but yeah, I worked CZW and I worked for Justice Payne, and
how'd that match go?
that was terrible. It was, I felt like I was carrying 500 pounds on my back that didn't want to listen, you know. It was like, ugh. It was horrible. But the main thing is like how Zandig does business. Like, you know, like there's a ref there that hands out the paydays, and somebody else gives you your finish and stuff like that, and he just kind of sits there and, you know, like looks cool. And you know, like he's not even the one who called me. It was like Eric Gargiulo like called me and booked me, and I was kind of like, yeah, should I do it? Yeah, and then finally I did it, and it wasn't the worst experience. You know, it's like a lot of people say that I got treated like shit there. I think I got treated disrespectfully by Zandig. I didn't get treated by shit by anybody else. You know, I'm sure there's a couple other guys that probably didn't like me, and they probably still don't. But my match sucked. I was sitting there, I had my pay in my hand, and I was about to leave, and I was looking at Zandig, and I was like, Punk, don't say it. Don't say anything. Don't ask. Don't ask. You really don't care. Don't ask. Hey, Zandig, what'd you think about my match? Damn it, why did you say that? Because he looked at me and he said, well, I've seen Chris have better. And I went, okay, well, you know, I've had better matches too, you know. But I think maybe, you know, and then he's like, well, you know, I mean, you worked Jerry Lynn and it was awesome. And I was like, yeah, I'm not so much Jerry Lynn. You know, Jerry Lynn can carry a bag of shit, and obviously I can't. So I said, maybe the problem was you and your champion don't know what the hell a babyface or a heel is, you know, because we were going over the match, and I said, well, I think I'm going to get a babyface pop. You know, I'm just coming off of having a fractured skull. I've never wrestled here, and for some reason, I'm really over here. You know, like all the fans talk about it on the internet, blah, blah, blah. If I'm going to be like this mystery opponent, I'm pretty much going to be a babyface. So what are you anyway? And honest to God, he looks at me. This is, what's his name? Justice Payne. He looks at me and goes, well, I'm a babyface, but I act like a heel, you know? And I just went, no, I don't know. I was like, can you be a heel, please? Can you be a heel? And it'll be like, I'm kind of chasing your title, and, you know, and then you get the win, and, you know, and it just, 1 second in the match he wants to be, I want to do this one spot where I kick you in the balls, and then I want to do this one spot where I shake your hand. I'm like, I'm not shaking your hand if you kick me in the balls. I'm going to slap you in the face, you know? It's just, like, that's what I had to deal with, and like, it would have been fine if it just went horribly, and that was that, but it went horribly, and I got blamed for it. And it was the one instance in my life that it was completely not my fault. So yeah, I just remember Zandig, like one of the last things he said to me was like, you know, yeah, well, he said something to me about, you know, I just don't see what the big hype is about you. And I was just like, yeah, neither did Eddie Guerrero, because, you know, I worked him a bunch of times, and he fucking loved it. So, you know, I'll just take his word over yours, and I will never see you again. Goodbye.
How'd you wind up in Ring of Honor?
How did I wind up in Ring of Honor? I think I just got a phone call one day from Gabe. I think me and Cabana probably gave a tape of our 2 out of 3 falls from Minnesota to somebody at a 3PW show, and we just, you know, I got booked first, you know. Yeah, I think I was at my super secret spooky scientist job when I was a scientist, my real world job. And since I really did nothing all day but kind of sit around and look at stuff on the internet and find benches to sleep under and check my cell phone messages, I just checked my message and saw that Gabe called him up and just talked to him at work, and then I suppose the rest is history. He wanted big secret here. I was originally supposed to work Xavier, so imagine if that happened.
Memories of your first night in when you left 3PW show in progress to come to our show, I guess, down the street and cut a promo?
Well, even though a lot of people probably might not think it, I like to conduct myself with as much respect, professionalism, and decorum as I can. And I normally do a really good job, except when people piss me off. So I told Ace and Cabana, who were along for the ride that time, I said, hey, you know, it's not like we're going to work on the Ring of Honor show, but, you know, they said, hey, they got TV, they want me to go shoot a couple promos, you know. I don't know if they want to do anything with you 2 guys yet, but, you know, they definitely want to use you. And I'm going to tell Meanie and Jasmine, you know, I'll put all the heat on me. I'll say, hey, they got TV, and I'm working for them, you know, on the 9th of November. They just want me to go shoot some TV stuff, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Is that cool? You know? So I go up to Meanie, I say, hey, Meanie, you know, here's the deal, you know, and Meanie's like all bent out of shape about it, you know. And I was like, well, I told you I was going to work for him, you know. It's just, you know, work is work, brother. You know, it's not like I got salary anywhere. It's not like you're paying my bills. So, you know, work is work. Plus, I was really excited to work there, you know. A lot of my friends work there. It's like the place to be. So I said, here's what we're doing, dude. You know, like, we got to split. We do got to get home. But I want you to know that before we leave, we're not leaving directly and going home. We're leaving. We're going a couple blocks over. We're going to the Ring of Honor show. I got to shoot these promos. And, you know, I'm just letting you know, because I don't want there to be any heat when it comes out on the internet, you know, that we were there thinking, you know, do you think I double-crossed you, or, you know, I stabbed you in the back or something like that. And me, he was just kind of like, oh, well, just don't, you know, don't tell Jasmine. And I was like, well, I want to, you know, I don't want there to be heat. He's like, well, then I'll handle it, Okay. I said, Brian, are we cool? You know, I don't want any heat between me and you. You know, no, I understand. I really see you as a 3PW guy. Okay, well, I see me as a guy who needs to fucking eat 7 times a day and pay for gym membership, so I'm going over to the Murphy Rec Center. So I got there, and it wound up turning into like a live promo, and that was really cool. That made me feel really good, because I didn't think anybody would even know who the hell I was when I walked through the curtain. And everyone, like, I think everybody stood up, and I was like, yeah, cool. So I cut my promo, Cabana came out, and it pretty much set up the whole Cabana Punk thing.
Memories of your early matches with Colt Cabana?
In Ring of Honor?
Yes.
Definitely not our best work, and I will cite the fact that we're at a juncture in our relationship where we weren't really getting along. I think it was more or less I couldn't stand him. We're totally cool now, but the characters, like the interaction between me and Cabana, where, you know, he's acting like a retard, and I'm, you know, it's like the cartoon dogs, like the little dog. What are we gonna do today? What are we gonna do? Yeah, shut up. Like, that's us, you know, and that's just from years of traveling and being on the road together. And like, I was just at a point where he was like on my last nerve, and like, I didn't know how to politely tell him, you know. I think we were both sick of working each other, but we wanted to have like a big impact and have like good matches, and it might have been a case where like we kind of tried too hard, because I'm not totally happy with all our matches, you know. I think we could have been given more time. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not completely pleased. It definitely wasn't our best stuff, but I think what came of it, like with the promos, and like Cabana has like the most badass character now because of the stuff, you know, like he went more towards like the entertainment and like the goofy, you know, Cabana, because that is him, you know. We always told him that that's what he should do, and he's finally completely embraced it, you know. And it was just like me working him in Ring of Honor was just like a process to get to where we are now, and like you know, the means totally justify the ends.
What do you think of being booked as a babyface early on in Ring of Honor?
I thought it was weird, because I make the correlation with like, I was a babyface in Minnesota. They're more of an old school babyface crowd, you know. Philadelphia crowd, not so much. But I think I tried to make the best of it, and it's not like I completely tanked as a babyface, but I think it was just kind of hard to buy, you know. I mean, I wasn't going out there and cutting the straight edge promos yet, but still, I think, I mean, a lot of the fans are internet fans, and they know, and, you know, I just think I wasn't really comfortable, so, and it's hard to get into a groove unless you're really comfortable, you know, and unless I have a microphone in my hand and I'm telling people that they suck and how much better I am, and that I'm not really comfortable, you know. And plus, you know, babyface matches, when there's other babyface matches on the show that are like, you know, worlds better, because, you know, guys like Chris Daniels and Key and American Dragon, you know, it was just weird, but, you know, learning experience.
Did you think your car promos with Cabana would turn out as good as they did?
No, it was kind of an afterthought. I wasn't like, man, this is going to be really good, but I also wasn't like, this is going to suck. I just we just did it. It was like, we gotta get out of this, film this promo, and I think the end result was phenomenal. I thought everybody thought it was just going to be, you know, well, here's this promo to kind of explain, you know, how we're like at each other's throats and stuff like that. And I don't think anybody thought it would turn out as good as it did, you know. I mean, that stuff, nothing was rehearsed, and just like a match with nothing called, it's more emotional. You feed off of what the other person gives you, and you gotta, you know, it's improv, you know. And that stuff's dynamite. I want to do more. I got so many ideas. I want to do more like silly situation promos with Cabana.
How did the plan to turn your heel play out?
How did it turn out? I thought it turned out very well. It was basically, it seemed like I needed a foil, and with Raven coming in, I think it was supposed to just be a one-shot deal, you know, and it turned out so well, and it just brought this extra dynamic out of my character that, you know, he obviously, you're welcome, Scotty, you got booked a lot more, and it just turned into, you know, what people are calling the feud of the year and stuff like that. And I'm honestly not all that proud of a lot of the matches. Raven works a more slow, like deliberate, methodical pace. He also says no to a lot of things that I want to do, and you know, he's the boss. You know, what you know, nah, I'm too big. You can't give me a tilt-a-roll backward. I'm too big. No, I'm not gonna take that. My shoulders don't go back that way. Keep me grounded, kid. No chops. Maybe if chopping was your thing, then do chops. But it's not. You suck at it. You know Chris Benoit. You know, that's the boss. I don't know. Me versus Raven was, you know, and me turning heel and just basically coming out and saying, you know, here's a guy who doesn't belong to Ring of Honor. I belong to Ring of Honor because, you know why? Well, here's why. Because I'm drug free and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, basically me being the knight in shining armor trying to protect the people from this abysmal guy who's washed up, and the people just going, hi, well, fuck you. We like him better anyway. And, you know, me being a big crybaby about it.
What do you remember as your first match with Raven in Boston, March 15th?
Well, I'll tell you about my first match with Raven, which was the night before the first match in Ring of Honor with Raven. I worked for Norm Connors for the last time because he was an incredible buffoon, and I chopped the living shit out of Raven. Like, he was gushing blood from like the night before, like TNA or like 2 days before, and he sits down and he goes, all right, kid. He's like, what do you like to do? And I was like, well, you know, I can work, you know, old school, whatever, you know, and you know, pretty much I know everybody says that. You know, oh, I can do whatever. I can do whatever you want. I can fly. I can do this. I can do that. Blah, blah, blah. And I look at him, and all of a sudden, blood just starts pouring down his head. And I was like, hey, you might want to kind of... And he goes, fuck. Is anybody going on right now? Is there a match going on? Somebody's music's playing. They're there. All right, fuck it. Come on. He grabs me, throws me through the curtain. Just starts brawling me. He just wanted to get it over with because his head was already leaking. And so we didn't call anything. Went out there, so I'm chopping the shit out of him. He's running away from me. I'm chopping the shit out of him. He punches me in the face. I'm like, all right, it's on. Boom, I jack him back. He jacks me. I chop him. He fucking thumbs me in the eye, rolls out of the ring. I'm like, wow, that fucking sucked. I roll back out, put him up against the post. I go to chop him. He blocks it. Like that motherfucker. I light him up, and in the back, that's all he says to me. Maybe no more chops. They hurt. They're useless. And it'd be a lot better if when you chop me, you slap your leg. Well, that's the last time I chopped Raven. As I learned my big, valuable Scott Levy lesson there that night. And the next night went a lot smoother. I thought it was a good match. And he put me over and had no complaining about it. And I think, you know, he knew he needed to chase me. If he went out there and he pinned me, then there'd be nothing. You know, there'd be no feud. But yeah, I gave him something to do for a couple months.
How'd you come up with the Second City Saints name?
I was actually Josh Prohibition came up with that name. Me and him were milling around names, and I said I wanted it to be. He's like, well, what are you looking for? And you know, because obviously Prohibition straight edge too, and I just started throwing stuff out there. I said Saints, this, that, blah blah blah, and I said I'm thinking something Second City. You know, I don't know. And he just goes, that's Second City Saints. And I went, I'm a genius. And that's how, and everybody at Ring of Honor loved it. And I still think it's a great name. It's tremendous. You know, we're from Chicago. I think I'm a saint because I don't do drugs. And, you know, it's kind of hypocritical because I'm not a saint. You know, I'm a big heel. And everybody's happy, you know.
How do you, as far as the match with you guys against Raven and Cabana, how do you feel about that match, the way it turned out?
I remember sitting on the apron, telling Ace, oh, this is agony, brother. I'm like, I'm dying. This is killing me. And like, you know, typical reaction from the Philadelphia crowd that's already seen everything twice, and it was like, felt like it dragged on and stuff like that. But then it's one of those matches when I got the tape, I thought it was awesome. I was like, man, I don't know why everybody shit on this. You know, this is great. It came off really good on tape. Like Cabana lost his contact. I got my back all scraped up. Like I lost my contact too, and like it was just one of those. It was like one of those messes. It was like an experiment. It was the first time Ace worked Raven. It was like the second time I worked Raven. I'm not all that great at tag matches anyway, you know. And it was just, it was kind of one of those things we just had to get through it to do the Cabana turn and get him into Saints. But like the people shit all over it, but I like it. It held up on tape a lot. There's a lot of cool stuff in that match.
Now, would you call working with Raven a learning experience?
Yes, it's a life, it's a lesson. I love working with Raven. Raven is awesome. You know, as much as that's just me ribbing. You know, that's just my personality, throwing jabs all day long. But yeah, he's awesome. You know, I get to work side by side with him at TNA. I get to feud with him, you know, Ring of Honor, and it's like the best of both worlds. You know, because he's been everywhere. You know, I got a really mean Raven impression now that everybody who knows him, you know, pops for. You know, why do you want to do the Japan stuff, kid? I've taken the lariat from Stan Hansen. I've taken the kicks from Kawada. They're light as hell. I'm telling you, kid. You don't gotta hit me so hard. Stop. You know, and he's great, dude. He's helped me out a lot. But I would also like to point out this time in the interview that I've helped him a lot too, and sometimes with no thank you. But that's Raven. You know, like he'd call me and say, "Hey, kid, I'm doing the Comic-Con in Chicago in August. You know any shows around there I can get on?" Well, geez, Chicago's the shits, boss. I'll call him. I'll make some calls. I'll try to find out. So I get him booked on 2 shows. I'm sure he made like, you know, $10 grand that weekend or something like that. Do I get a thank you? No. Yeah, but that's because you're the kid and I'm the boss, and you're supposed to do things like that for me. Yeah, tremendous.
That's awesome. Why do you think, or what did you think of when the Alcoholic Father storyline was presented to you?
Funny story. Gabe brought it up.
I'm just laughing at the laugh because it's so
yeah. That was he was really trepidatious about it. He's like, yeah, I don't know if you want to do this. You know, I just thought of this idea. It add like a whole new dynamic, and it just, you know, you could be like crazy, you know, about it, and this and this and that. You know how Raven reminds you of your drunk dad. And that's really, you know, why you really hate him. Blah blah blah. And then I hit Gabe with, hey man, my dad was an alcoholic. Gabe was falling all over himself trying to apologize. I'm so sorry. I was like, no, it's cool. It's not like, you know, he didn't beat me or anything like that. I'm like, he just liked to drink a whole lot, you know. And I used, you know, everything that ever happened, you know, like with my dad, and like, you know, he loved his old style, you know, and like, I think it was awesome, you know. I mean, I will very seldomly put over like matches I have, or like especially my in-ring work, but promos is something that like, I guess I'm a natural at it, you know, and especially when it comes from the heart like that, you know. I was just kind of bitching about, you know, shitty stuff my dad used to do, you know, so it's, you know, to me it's really easy, and that promo after the match, I think sort of like elevated me to like a new level in Ring of Honor, at least, you know, to like, I just remember people being like, whoa, I would get phone calls, like, whoa dude, I just saw that fucking promo, man, are you alright? Fine, you know, it's kind of bloody, but you know, it's all good.
How did you get Lucy in the Ring of Honor?
I said, hey, I said, book this hot girl. I said, she used to be Daphne, she's tremendous. I met Lucy working for Ian, and I don't know, it just seemed like a natural fit, like character-wise. It was like, we're the Second City Saints, you know, and I've heard people like complain that, oh, well, it shouldn't be like a geographical thing, it should be like a straight edge thing, like, you know, Punk should be with like M-Dog and Prohibition, because they're straight edge too. But I don't think that's real life. I think Ace Steel, the guy who trained me, and Colt Cabana, the guy who I broke in with, who are my friends, regardless of what they do or who they are or how they act or how mad we get at each other, like that's real life, you know, like I'm sure people watching this, you have friends that sometimes piss you off and get on your nerves, you know, yeah, but you're friends, you know, you love each other and you care about each other, so it's not, you don't just piss everything away, so it's just like, and we're all misfits from like a different, you know, kind of like generation, you know, like if I met Cabana when I was in high school, I guarantee you I would beat the shit out of him. You know, kind of like the, you know, jocks. He was a jock, you know. There's no way he would have liked me, blue hair, I got a fish hook in my lip, and like all that weird shit, you know. But it was just like, we all love pro wrestling, so why shouldn't we be a stable? We're all from Chicago. Ace trained us, you know. We all traveled together. And the addition of Lucy was just like, I just thought she was like a completely, you know, new dynamic, and I knew we were eventually going towards like a Chris Daniels, CM Punk, Prophecy, Second City Saints thing, and he's got Alice in Danger, and I thought it'd be just a better for the whole dynamic to have, you know, a female valet, you know, and Lucy's beyond tremendous, you know, she's got all the talent in the world, you know, she's pretty to look at too.
What did you think of the whole Lucy getting attacked storyline?
I hated it.
We still don't know who attacked her, you know.
I know. If anybody out there knows who attacked Lucy Fur, please email me. Email the Ring of Honor offices. At first I didn't like it because, and here's where I think, instead of me going, that's stupid, you know, I thought we were kind of like insulting the fans. Like, okay, obviously she got a developmental contract and now she works for the WWE. You know, that's why she's not in Ring of Honor. Nobody attacked her, you know, that's kind of dumb. But I think fans look at pro wrestling for what it is. You know, I could get into the whole debate, oh, it's fake, and they know it's fake, and they watch it because they love it, and blah, blah, blah. So I think if the fans really just kind of sit and watch and let it play out, and I think if my character explains, you know, we're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We're not saying, you know, you know, we're not trying to pretend she's dead, you know. We're saying she doesn't work here anymore because it's not a safe working environment. Jasmine St. Clair. You know, so, and obviously she has a job elsewhere now. But I'm still pissed because somebody, you know, took her out. And the way the storyline is going to play out, I think everyone, if they just look at it for what it is going to be really entertaining, and it's gonna wind up defining a lot of the stuff that goes on in Ring of Honor in like the first 6 months of the new year.
What was your opinion of the dog collar match you had with Raven at Death Before Dishonor?
I hated it. After the match, I was like, yeah, I suck. Yeah, that sucked. You know. But a lot of times less is more. On tape, I think it's tremendous now. You know. Raven just taught me so much, and it's like a different aspect of wrestling. Obviously, Raven's not, you know, teaching me high spots. He's teaching me more of the psychology and stuff like that. And like the whole angle afterwards, that was like electric. That was magical to be there. I just remember being tied to the ropes going, this sucks, I have to sell this because I want to look up, you know, Tommy Dreamer and Raven hugged in the middle of the ring. And the crowd was going banana. I mean, that was like, you know, that was the culmination of a feud that went on in ECW for how long, you know? And it was just like, I don't think you could have picked a more perfect moment. Here's the young, brash upstart who, you know, just beat Raven at his own game again. Trick the fans, give the fans Danny Doring. Of course, the fans are going to shit on Danny Doring because they think that's the cool thing to do. Oh, boo, you suck, blah, blah, blah. Completely trick them, and then give them Tommy Dreamer. And, you know, and just me standing in the ring, looking around going, what? What's everybody cheering for? Oh, for me? Ah, tremendous. Thank you. Blah, blah, blah. And to turn around and Tommy, you know, hits me with the chair. He gives me the DDT. He ties me to the ropes. Him and Raven meet, shake hands, hug, you know, and then they kind of look, and it was like, it was history. Honestly, it was a play on the chair shot heard around the world when Tommy hit Raven with the chair when he was chained up to the cage. You know, instead of causing me physical pain, he's going to cause me mental pain because he's going to try to dump a beer down my throat. It's fucking that's pro wrestling, man. That's hot. That's art. I'm a genius.
What was your first reaction, I guess, when we presented the idea of using beer in the angle that night?
I presented the idea.
You did? Oh.
It's all my idea.
Did you like it? Is Dave out there?
Well, whose idea was it then?
I said beer, and you said tie me up and dump it down my throat.
Yeah, okay. So
I said beer.
the idea of beer wasn't mine, and the idea of how do you feel about the beer, you know? And I said, shit, you know what would be a cool visual? What if I was tied in the ropes and they, you know, did the, you know, like the black drink of death from like the, you know, Temple of Doom when they did that shit to Indiana Jones and made him all crazy, you know? Like that's, yeah, and like a lot of people were like, dude, you really gonna do that? And like I remember coming in the back and a lot of the guys going, dude, was that for real? Or like, you know what, you know? And I just think, honestly, I think what everybody here at Ring of Honor is trying to do is just, you know, make good pro wrestling. And I just think that was a tremendous, you know, like the whole thing from start to finish, and the fact that everybody in the crowd thought that was gonna be our big blow off. And you know, it's like on so many levels. It's like such a multi-layered like drama, and you know.
Were you afraid that the straight edge community might turn on you?
What about the beer thing?
Yeah, about the beer thing.
No.
That's a dumb question. I don't know.
No, it's not a dumb question. I think maybe it crossed my mind, but I don't really belong to any sort of straight edge community.
Right.
Truthfully, I'm straight edge for me. You know, it's not like I run around in, you know, Salt Lake City, Utah, and carve X's on people's backs and blow up McDonald's. So I'm not vegan. I'm not vegetarian. You know, if you try to pour beer down my throat, I'll punch you in the face. You blow smoke on my face, I'll kick you. You know, stuff like that. But I don't run with a crew. I don't do anything like that. And if anybody questions me being straight edge, I'll just punch them in the face. So I'm not worried at all.
Why did you not want to be the one that brought the beer to the ring?
You know, I'm trying to remember why. I just think it would look really. Yeah, I wanted it like under the ring because I didn't want to like actually tote it to the ring and be like, "Hi, I'm the straight edge guy. Here's beer," because I didn't want to foreshadow like what was going to happen at the end at all. I wanted it to be like Raven's tied up. You know, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh," you know, just like it was kind of like this. Like here. Here's the big blow off for the feud. Oh wait, Punk went over. Okay, they tricked us. Okay, well here's the ECW run in. There goes Dan Bjorn. Oh holy shit, Tommy Dreamer. Wow, they got us again. Oh, Punk's tying him up. He's gonna hit him with the chair like the chair shot heard around the world. Yay. Oh shit, he's pouring beer down his throat. Wow, that's, you know, and it's like one thing was, you know, top the other. It's kind of like false finishes in a match. You know, one's bigger and then finally the big finish. I just didn't want to foreshadow. And plus, why would I have beer? You know, did I go buy it? No. Like, you know, why would I have the beer? So if it's just under the ring, like, you know, like the miscellaneous furniture and, you know, stuff that's always under a ring, you know, like, why is this fire extinguisher under the ring? You know, I just didn't think it made, like, too much sense.
What was it like working with Tommy Dreamer?
Tommy was cool, you know, aside from I understand, you know, he makes his money elsewhere, and even though he loves, you know, Ring of Honor and stuff like that, you can't bump him, you can't do this, you can't do that, and he was like apologizing to me, but it didn't make any sense for me to bump him anyway. Like I shouldn't have touched him. It should have just been that he's saving Raven, you know. Yeah, he's really cool. He's a very selfless guy. Like, you know, he wants to try to get everybody else over, and you know, he just says he's over already. So, I mean, listen to the reaction he got, you know. And I got a bit of a rub off him just for doing that with him, so, you know, I'm thankful for that. And, yeah, I got, working with Tommy was cool.
What was your opinion of the steel cage match out with Raven September 6th? And if you could do it differently, what would you do?
All right, it's a shoot interview, right? If I would do it differently, I would convince everybody to listen to me. I love working Raven, but sometimes it's pulling teeth, which I imagine like everybody who works with him knows that. You know, he's a perfectionist. He is the vet. I will listen to him in given situations. The match, in my opinion, and the way I wanted it to go, it should have been climb out rules. There shouldn't have been weapons in the cage. I wasn't down with that idea at all. And in the match, Raven, I just, you know, like, try getting Raven to the top of the cage. You know, it's like, I'm in the middle on that one. It's just like, you know, and I blame nobody but myself. You know, like, I beat myself up for weeks after that match just because I just thought it was so bad, and like the way it came off, and like, here we have this gem of a feud, you know, and like, I mean, everybody's imitating it all over the indies, you know, like MLW, Norm Connors, you seriously, you name it, like everybody wanted CM Punk versus Raven on their show, and it ended that way, you know. It was just like, I just felt it could have been so much better. I could certainly have worked harder, you know, and there was a point, I just think it was also marred a little bit by the fact that the crowd had already seen everything, they were kind of already dead. There was like a miscue with the music, and my music was playing, and they were all up and ready to go, and like then the music stopped, and I think that killed them, and it was just, you know, a long night, hot building, and there was just a lot of stuff working against us, you know. I think, like, I mean, just running the ropes with all that crap in there, and then like, dude, I swear, like, you know, when he hit me in the head with like a shovel, and it didn't make a noise, and the crowd groaned, like, oh, it hurt like a fucking bitch. Everything he hit me with in that ring hurt. He hits me with the chair, watch him hit me with the lip of the chair. My entire face was like a bruise. I was lumpy, and like, I lost so much blood, like I had that knot in my stomach for like a day, and it was just a bad experience. It was just like one of those things, you know, like chalk it up to a lesson and, you know, move on, but I would love nothing more than to be able to redeem myself for that, you know. Nobody's fault. It's just, you know, we know it will work better next time, and, you know, I like the drama of the, you know, the cage, you know, like, you know, he poured beer down my throat, so my going into the match was, well, you poured beer down my throat, and you haven't beat me yet, so we still both want to kill each other, so let's get in this cage and let's absolutely murder each other. You know, and he wanted me to kind of be like the trepidatious heel and backing off, and I was like, I can't back off, I can't. You poured beer down my throat, you know, like, I gotta get my revenge, you gotta get yours. Big clash, and like, we butted heads about it, and, you know, eventually I said, well, you're the boss, so, you know, let's just do it this way, and it didn't so much work out as we had planned. But a funny side note to the story is, I was, a couple weeks later, Chris Hero called me and said, hey, you're going to be really mad at me. I just want to tell you before, you know, I do it. He's like, I'm working for CZW again. And this is after they had already beaten him up and all this other shit. And I'm like, really? And I had that weekend off. And I used to be all gung-ho about working every weekend. I worked 2 years straight, every single weekend, normally at least 2 times. But things are different now. I'm older, and I'm, you know, I need the rest. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, yeah. I'm going to go and I'm going to watch your back. And I fully had the intent to start a riot if anybody tried any bullshit with Hero. But I went, and I had my hoodie on, I had the hood up, and I sat at the back of the building at a table, and nobody knew I was there. Fans were coming in and looking at some of the merchandise that was on the table, and a fan had the Raven Punk cage match shirt on. And I was sitting with a friend of mine, and he kicks me under the table, and he asks the fan, he goes, hey, how's that match? Oh man, it was horrible. Oh fuck, Raven hit him with like this plastic thing, and oh, it could have been so much better. It was real disappointing. Like, yeah, like I could tell Punk was really frustrated, and, you know, it wasn't one of Raven's best performances, but man, oh, was it the shits? Oh, was it bad? This, that, blah, blah, blah. Holy shit, dude, I'm so sorry, I love the match, but and I was obviously ribbing the guy, but I did say, hey, I'm sure it was better than any cage match you've ever had. But
why do you use the blade so much in Ring of Honor when you never used it before?
Because it made sense. It made absolute sense. There was times Ian asked me to get color for no apparent reason, and I like things when they make sense. And I'll do anything if it makes sense. If it makes sense for me to jump out of a helicopter naked into like a pile of razor blades, I will do it. I don't foresee that making any sense. But, you know, for a feud to really, you know, gain steam and stuff like that, it was like, well, here's a kid who doesn't want Raven in Ring of Honor. You know, if you break it down, here's this kid with all this integrity. He's straight edge, something he believes in so much, he tattoos it on his skin. And here's Raven, you know, somebody who could have been great, but, you know, in the kid's eyes, pissed everything away. And he's coming to Ring of Honor somewhere where he doesn't belong. So the kid's gonna try to stop him from coming to the Ring of Honor. Kid wins. You know, Raven's mad, finally comes out that, you know, Raven can't beat this kid, so it's under Raven's skin. He needs to beat this kid. Finally comes out, kid had an alcoholic father. That's really why he hates Raven, blah, blah, blah. So these two genuinely hate each other. And it's like, Raven always says, you know, a lot of the stuff that you hate in other people is usually something that's inside you, you know. So Raven looks at me and sees a lot of himself, you know. So he probably hates that. And it just made so much sense. And plus, I think it was shocking for a lot of people, you know. And it's just something I'd never done before. And I just think it kind of worked out that it turns out I was really good at it. Like, you know, and the main reason is because it made total sense, you know. I mean, I'm bleeding buckets, and now everyone thinks I'm going to win, and I pull out another victory. Or everyone thinks I'm going to lose, and, you know, and I pull it out again. It's just, you know, it's a matter of what makes sense.
What was it like working Terry Funk at Glory by Honor too?
Fucking awesome, you know. I beat myself up about that match too, but I was working Terry Funk, and I was trying to be very fragile. Terry is, you know, tougher than shoe leather, but I certainly didn't want to be responsible for hurting him or anything like that. And, you know, I mean, he's got such bad knees, and I put the figure 4 on the wrong way, and like I'm such a douchebag. But I mean, it was an honor, you know. Like if that was somebody else in the match, and like I was just like seconding him in the ring, like just to be there, and like, you know, to hear the fans chant Terry and stuff like that. I mean, it's somebody I grew up watching, you know. I mean, him and Junkyard Dog are like fucking, you know, WrestleMania. I wasn't really in awe, you know. I don't mark out when I meet people, like anybody, movie stars, anything. People, everybody's just a human being, and they're just, you know, they're just making a living or doing what they love or whatever. But you know, Terry, the night before an MLW, Terry looks at me and goes, "Hey, Punker, what we gonna do tomorrow night?" And I said, "Well, Mr. Funk, I thought we would wrestle." "Oh, wrestle? Yeah, that's a good idea, you son of a bitch. That's a great idea. Yeah, I thought we were gonna play Tiddlywinks. What the?" And then he gets all quiet. He sits there, and then he grabs Mikey Whipwreck and goes, "Mikey, who the hell am I even working tomorrow night at Ring of Honor?" And like I'm sitting there, and I'm like, all right, but he just asked me. He knows he's working me, but like, okay, he's just ribbing me. He's got to be ribbing me. And I'm assuming he was ribbing me, but I really don't know. It was just phenomenal working Terry Funk, you know. Jab, 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 boom! I can't explain it. Like, it was an honor to get decked in the mouth by that man, you know. And I guess I had fun, you know, but I'm so hard on myself about stuff like that, and, you know, it's hard to say, like, I mean, for what it was, I think it's good. Now I do, but I still, you know, I would love a second chance to work him. And you know what? Terry Funk absolutely loved it, you know. I mean, somebody called me up and said that he put me over in his shoot interview.
Yeah.
I mean, that, believe me, I was just, you know, yes, sir, please, thank you. And it was an honor to work you, and I had fun and everything, and, you know, and he's like, "Oh, you bumped like hell for me," and, you know, and it's just a lot of fun to be able to share stories. Like if I'm sitting around with Carino, and he says, "Yeah, one time when I was working Terry," and I can go, "Yeah, man, when I worked him, you know, he did the same thing, and that." It's, you know, to me, it's an honor, and it's really cool, you know, like it just proves like how far I've come to myself, and to me, it's just an amazing thing. 17 minutes of mic work, 20-minute match. I thought it was awesome, and it was awesome probably for a lot of different reasons than people would think. I'm pretty sure the way it all came off, the fans thought that we planned all that, and it was like, you know, it was like a big work and a rib, you know. All I knew is that Carino had done 2 of those long intros and stuff like that, and me and Carino are really good friends outside the ring. So I was just gonna rib him and come up with this big list of all you know, this partial list of drugs I haven't done. I ran it by a couple people, and they were like, man, yeah, that's gonna be funny. You know, you're gonna pop Carino with that, blah blah blah. So Carino came to me and he's like, yeah, I don't have a big entrance. And I was like, oh, no, you need one, because I have one that kind of mocks you. And he's like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I can't tell, I'm not gonna tell you. And he goes, fine, then I'm not gonna tell you mine either. You just said you didn't have one. Well, I do, and then he came up with one, and you know, and it worked out. So he said he was following in the footsteps of all these great wrestlers who were obviously every single one of them was a drug addict. And then here's me pulling out of my boot. Well, oh yeah, well here's this list of drugs, you know, and I think it was just one of those good segments. And I think me and Carino got chemistry, and we understand like that the role of a heel is, you know, if people are in the crowd, you know, going, it's boring, it sucks, you know, wrestle. Got you right there, you know, got you right there. And I love that, you know, because it's not like we're wrestling and they're chanting boring. No, we were making them sit there and wait and, you know, letting the anticipation build. And then 1 minute into the match, I blow my knee out and then have to go 19 minutes for a drop. But, you know, the match was another thing I kind of beat myself up about, but then when I watched it, I thought it was pretty good on tape, you know. I do that a lot, apparently.
What was it like working with Steve in the ring?
Very easy. I'd never worked him before, and I thought for two guys who've never worked each other before, you know, to have a match, you know, that good the first time they work, you know, that's always a good thing. But you know, I've seen Carino work 1,000 times. He's seen me work 1,000 times in, you know, in Japan and in the States, and you know, we're on a lot of the shows together and stuff like that. So it was really easy. Not only was it a lot of fun, but it was easy, and that's like the best thing, you know. Nobody got hurt. Everybody had fun, and you know, I think it was really, the whole thing I think was a really good segment, you know.
What did you think of your match in Baltimore with AJ Styles?
God, did I need that. I needed that. Like, I'd beat myself up about, you know, like I love working Raven, but, you know, I can't have, like, the athletic contest matches that, like, I love to have. And working TNA, doing, like, you know, 4-minute matches, you know, and I'm wondering to myself if I can even wrestle, you know, and I told this to AJ, I said, AJ, I really need this match, and he's like, yeah, I do too, you know. He's been working Jarrett and stuff like that, so me and him were just like, hey, let's just, you know, and the same thing, we just went out there and, you know, I had a blast with that match, and it's just, I really like it, and honestly, I think it's underrated a little bit. I think the people there were like, you know, oh yeah, it was a good match, you know, blah, 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 but I think when it comes out on tape, I think a lot of people are gonna really dig that match. You know, the finish alone, I just thought the finish was amazing, you know. AJ was like, is there a way I can hit Styles Clash if you go for the Shining Wizard? I was like, I don't know, let's try it. So we tried it, and it worked, you know. Yeah, working AJ is, I mean, awesome. Anytime you get to work a guy like that, you know, it's just awesome. Somebody you're that good of friends with, you know, outside the ring, and, you know, you both have one goal in mind, and it's just to have just a kick-ass match, you know, and he's so athletically gifted, it's awesome.
How did you end up as the head trainer for the Ring of Honor School?
Well, I got laid off from my real job as a spooky scientist in October of 2002, and I told myself I was gonna like full on press for, you know, making wrestling like all I did, you know, and like I had just done TNA like a couple times and nothing was really happening with it, and like I had really nothing else going on. And then like just one day I just asked Rob Feinstein, hey, let me like dub tapes for you and pay me, like just give me a job, because I don't ever want my goal. When I got laid off, which is one of the happiest days of my life, I swore to myself I will never have a real job ever again, you know, because this is all I ever want to do. And thankfully it just panned out that way. And I said, hey man, I'll stuff videotapes, or I'll label stuff. And he said, what about school? I said, really? Oh, yeah, okay, that's a good idea. And that's how it happened.
Was it tough to make a decision to move away from Chicago to come here?
It wasn't tough, because it was, there was a lot of things that, you know, like, I love Chicago. I've yet to find any place that I would rather live, and I've been some places, but like moving away from my friend Chaz and moving away from Ace and stuff like that, that kind of sucked. Plus actually moving, that sucks. That's boring. But, you know, I got a lot of friends out here, and I think it's just a tremendous opportunity. I'm the same age Ace was when he started training me. And I think I'm a lot more worldly traveled than Ace was when he started training people. I have the same passion and fire he does, and I eat, breathe, sleep wrestling. So I'm looking forward to teaching kids. You know, I'm gonna learn a lot from them, just as much as they'll probably learn from me, and it'll probably kick my ass a little bit more and get me into better shape. And yeah, I miss Chicago every day. I miss, like, there's only a couple people I miss, but you know, just I was born and raised there, so you know.
What will your training style be like?
Lots of cardio. It's gonna be. I really want to call it a dojo, but I don't want to call it a dojo because that's like the trendy thing to do, you know. But I'm gonna treat it. I'm gonna treat it a lot like I got trained at the Domain, except for the first couple months, the kids aren't touching the ring because I want them to get in shape, and I want them to be able to do stuff in the ring, like pick it up a lot quicker, and lots of push-ups, lots of squats, running, you know, lots of stuff like that. I'm going to the New Japan dojo next week for a week to get some more training drills and find out how they, you know, run class and stuff like that. And I'll probably wind up using a lot of that. But the training style, I'm not going to be, you know, Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker about the whole thing. You know, if you quit, I've told the kids, if you quit on yourself. You know, but what you put into it is what you get out of it. You know, so yeah, I'm gonna push him hard. You know, but the first thing I'm gonna teach him is like respect and discipline. You know, so that will be the training style. It's gonna be very lean towards how the Japanese train. You know, when I was over there in 01 training with the Japanese every day, you know, it kicks your ass, but it's like you gain such a respect for it, and they're really good workouts. So it's definitely how I want the kids to be brought up.
What is the atmosphere like in the Ring of Honor locker room?
One big happy family, honestly. I think by default, since a lot of the people travel all over the world, we're almost like a really close-knit group. You know, like I go to Japan with Carino and Key. I go, you know, like every weekend, like usually 3 days a week now, with Chris Daniels, you know. So by default, you know, like a lot of the people you travel with and stuff like that become your family, and that's the way a lot of us treat it. You know, we look out for each other. You know, we take care of each other. We protect each other, and I do think, I mean, Ring of Honor to me is looked at on the Indies as like the elite place to be. But I mean, there's no hard asses. There's no, you know, oh, you don't belong here and this and this and that. It's like everybody has one common goal. It's just, you know, let's just go out there and have the best match we can, or let's put on a good show. And you know, I'm best friends with Samoa Joe because of Ring of Honor, because you know, that's how I met him, and you know, now me and him are all over the place, and you know, I think we all, the merry band of heels, all shares a deep love for shenanigans. So I think a lot of it stems from that. But the atmosphere in Ring of Honor locker rooms is awesome. It's, you know, it's the best place to work right now.
How did you end up in 01?
I basically, I got an email one day. It just said, "Punk, can you work this, you know, this tour from here to here?" And I responded with a big yes, because this has always been my dream to go to Japan. And then it got extended a couple days, and that's basically how it came about. You know, I knew Carino wanted to bring me over there, and you know, but I never asked Carino to get me over there. You know, like his job as the Gaijin booker is to book, and first and foremost, Steve Carino is my friend, and I don't ask for favors like that from friends. You know, like I get a flat tire, I'll call one of my friends and say, hey man, come pick me up, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I would never, you know, hey, get me to 0-1, you know, do this, do that. I just believed that like all my hard work would eventually lead to something. And it did. You know, Carino recognized that I had talent and thought I'd work good in 0-1, and, you know, he booked it. And, you know, I'm totally grateful for that. But it pisses me off when, you know, people are constantly bugging him about, you know, hey, get me to 0-1, hey man, we'll have so much fun, hey, no, blah, blah, blah. It's just like me, and it's just like they, you know, you don't understand how trying that is on Carino, because it's just like, you know, it's hard to tell who's his friend and who just wants a job and stuff like that. And, you know, I never asked for a damn thing from him. I just, you know, I just wrestled, and he thought I'd work good, so, you know, I got an email one day, and it was one of the happiest days of my life.
What were your first impressions of Japan?
I got off the plane and I said, I'm finally home. I'd never been there in my life, but it just felt so comfortable, you know? Like, I never had jet lag. People said I'd hate the food. I love the food. People said, you know, I hate the plane ride. I slept the whole time. You know, everything. You're gonna hate the hotel rooms. They're pretty small. I loved it. I had my own room. How am I gonna complain about any of this stuff? They paid for my food. They paid for my hotels. They paid me to do what I love, which is wrestle. I traveled. You know, I got to hang out with my friends in a foreign country, which is always cool. You know, walking down the street. One show, CW got his lip split open and had to go get stitches. And he came back and he's like, hey, I gotta take this medicine. I gotta eat something with it though. Can you go run and get me like a burger at McDonald's? I was like, yeah. I'm walking down the street and people are taking pictures of me. You know, I debut in Kirk and Hall and there's 3 CM Punk signs for me already. And that's unbelievable, you know? I mean, that was a dream come true, you know? And it felt like home. It felt like home to me.
What was it like working Hashimoto?
Hashimoto. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was awesome, you know. Hashimoto. He's the guy that broke in with Muda and what's his name?
Give me a hint.
The graduating class. It was like the coolest graduating class. No.
Doug would know in a heartbeat.
Yeah, of course Doug would know, and of course I look like the biggest idiot on tape right now. Fucking Yakuza boot. What's his name? Chono. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you know, I mean, he's one of the guys that came out of that graduating class, and it's just like, you know, he was all messed up. Knee, shoulder can't raise this high, you know, and he still worked, and it was, you know, I took them damn kicks, and I can't fathom being kicked by that man when he's completely healthy, because he damn near kicked my arm off, and he's half a cripple, you know, and it was just, you know, that match, it was me, Tengu Kaiser, and Snuka Jr. against Hashimoto, Fujiwara, and Takaiwa. Well, there's 3 legends right there, and you're staring across the ring from them, you know, and after the match, Fujiwara came up to me and said, Punk-san, today, you best worker in tag match, you know, and like, I'm standing there looking at this Japanese wrestling legend, just going, no, please, no, Hashimoto, Takaiwa, you best, you know. He said, no, Punk-san, today, you know, you pull together and make match better, you know, that's unbelievable, you know. You get to work the boss of the company and he likes the match, and Fujiwara puts you over, and, you know, like that whole tour for me was just like day after day, like something better happened. It was just amazing.
How did working Loki compare to when you worked him a couple years ago in the indie scene?
I really liked me and his match from the indies. It's just a lot of mat-based work, you know. I worked him in tag matches, so it was a little bit different, but I like the tag matches over there because it's just a really simple formula. You know, you wrestle, and then you know, you get like a 5-minute go home, go into falsies and stuff like that. Honestly, I didn't really see a difference. I wasn't in the ring with him enough, you know, and he's always been good. I'm sure he's better, but I didn't really get to feel him out all that much. I was in the ring with him, you know, in tag matches, like I said. So, no real big difference. You know, I think he's awesome. I really like this one singles match me and him have had, and I think that's one of my favorite matches.
Did anyone test you to see how tough you were over there?
Yes, yes. The aforementioned 6-man on the pay-per-view, I got the living shit beat out of me, and loved every single minute of it. I got thrown into the guardrail. My ankle got stuck into the guardrail. Takaiwa went to go throw me again. I brought the guardrail with me because my ankle was in it. He clotheslined me 3 times on the floor with those big fucking lariats. And I knew immediately. As soon as the match was over, I walked right in the locker room, walked right up to CW and Carino, and I said, thanks, guys. You put the hit out on me, and they giggled like schoolgirls, you know. But, yeah. And then Sakata, the new lightweight champ. Yeah, but it's not like everybody doesn't test you a little bit, you know. Yeah, but yeah, I got tested.
What are the highlights and the lowlights of the tour?
Low light? There's not a single low light. Highlights. The debuting in Kirken Hall with 3 signs for me. That was cool. I love CW's comment. He's in the ring and he looks at me and he goes, "Yeah, you've been here 3 minutes. Why not?" I've never had a sign. Being able to work legends like Fujiwara, Takaiwa, Hashimoto, getting to hang out and see Hidaka again, working with him, finding out what a Bob Sapp bar is, which is like the best ice cream bar I've ever had in my entire life.
What about the cat story?
Oh my god. Okay, that might be the low light. That might be the low point. Training with the Japanese wrestlers and them allowing like me and Key to work out with them and stuff like that before the shows was a big highlight. Working out at the 01 Dojo with Josh Daniels was fun. Hanging out with Josh Daniels was a riot too. The kid's like so unassuming and quiet, you know. I got lost in Tokyo because I figured I had 3 days off. The band AFI, who I happen to be friends with, was playing in Japan. So I figured, wow, this is perfect. They're playing in Japan. I'm in Japan. I'm obviously going to go see them, but I can barely, manage the subways in New York. Like hell, I was going to manage the subways in Japan. So I just pretty much got on and went somewhere trying to find this concert. There's like Summer Sonic Festival, like The Doors, Radiohead, like Blink-182, Green Day, Good Charlotte, you name it. Like they were there. Like, it was like their Lollapalooza. And I'm just riding the subway, looking around. Finally, see like a couple punk rock kids, and the little Japanese that I know, I'm trying to communicate with them, tell them that I want to go there, and they're just like, "Oh, follow me." And for all I know, they're gonna kill me. But they were going to the show, so I went to the show, met up with AFI, watched their set. We were gonna go see Radiohead, but we had to ride a shuttle to go see Radiohead, so we wound up going to see the Doors, which was wild. I'm not a Doors fan at all, and they had Ian Asbury from the Cult singing, but they were fucking jamming, man. It was really cool. So we were like, "Yeah, this is cool," blah blah blah. I wind up eating all of Good Charlotte sushi, and one of them tried to roll up on me and was like, "Hey, that was ours," and I was like, "What are you gonna do about it?" Because I hate them. I fucking hate them. And so going back home was even worse because I got a ride on AFI's bus back to their hotel, which is in Tokyo. Tokyo is a really big place though. So from there, I had to find somebody to translate for me to, get me back. I had a map and I said, I need to get back here, but here's where I started and I went here, now I'm here, I need to get back there. And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's real easy, you just do this." Well, I got lost. I'm wandering and everything looks different because now it's 2, 3 in the morning and it's pitch black. And I'm wandering around and, there's 8 vending machines on every corner and everything looks the same. And I'm just kind of looking around and I'm like, oh boy, this is, and nobody locks up their bikes in Japan. So I was really contemplating kind of borrowing a bike, but I thought that might be a bad thing to do. And I come across this really beautiful park. And I see in the distance there's a cat sitting on a rock. I'm like, that's weird, stray cat, and okay, how's the cat doing there? So I take a picture of the cat, and I walk up to it like I'm gonna pet the cat, and then I get about that far away from the cat stands up and just stares at me and starts making like crazy "I'm gonna attack you" noises. And I'm like, "Oh, easy, cat, you know, chill out, time out, you know." And I look at something else that I thought was a rock, like stands up. Holy shit, there's another cat. And all of a sudden there's like another cat comes out of the bushes, and then I turn, and cats just started coming out of everywhere. I mean, out of bushes, they were in the fucking trees. So I'm just kind of like, I felt like Homer Simpson. I was just like, and I slowly started to like back up, and they're hissing at me, and like one's on his hind legs doing this shit at me. Yeah, and like, and I was seriously, I was so terrified. I was like, I gotta get a picture of this, but I didn't want to like pull out the camera and like flash and then have cats like attack me, and I didn't know where I was. Then I finally made it back to my hotel, and everybody laughed at me.
What was the atmosphere in the 0-1 locker room?
It's different because they have, let's see, when they have All Japan guys, they have an All Japan locker room. They have a Gaijin locker room, they have a 0-1 locker room, and they have a UFO locker room. So it's kind of like everybody's in a different place. But it's pretty good. Everybody's there to do a job, you know, everybody's there to have fun and make money. So, I mean, there's never any problems. And, you know, I loved it because it was like they would have like water and tape, and I got my knee taped up every day, and I was like good to go. And, you know, it was very, I love working Hidaka. Like, you know, I worked Hidaka a lot in tag matches, and that was just always fun because he's fun to call matches with. But yeah, and certainly no problems in the 0-1 locker room, except I don't think Tom Howard likes me.
Why have you not gone back?
The main reason, because Hashimoto wants me to gain weight, which when he told me that, I mean, honestly, like, just completely devastated me, you know, because like I was recently doing like you know, darks and jobs and all this stuff for WWEF, and like, you know, they're like, "Oh man," you know, they were really impressed and telling me how, you know, good they thought I was, and this and this and that, and blah blah blah. And I think they were leaning towards giving me something, and it's like, "Oh, gain weight. Hey, you're taking the wrong supplements, kid." Well, I'm not gonna take those supplements, you know. So for me to, you know, land pretty much my dream job, go to Japan, and then get told I'm too tall to be a cruiserweight because I dwarf like all the cruisers like Hidaka and Kasai and stuff like that, but I'm not heavy enough to be a heavyweight, you know. And to their credit, they just want me to gain 15 pounds. They don't care if it's fat or what, so I can sit and eat ho-hos all day, but it's just like, I don't want to do that either, you know. So I've been eating a lot, you know, of like clean food and stuff like that, and lifting heavy and stuff like that. But, you know, it was kind of hard for a while because I was immediately, while I was over there, the third day I was over there, they booked me on the next tour. And then when I was back in the States, they took me off. And then I was on the September tour, and I got taken off that. And then I was put on the October tour, and I got taken off that too. So it was just like, "Hey, you're on the tour." "No, you're not." "Hey, you're back on the tour." "Fuck you." Hey, you know, and it was just kind of like a roller coaster ride and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm sure it will be used again, but it's just a matter of when.
How did you get a WWE dark match, and what was it like working in WWE?
WWE was cool because it's like, you know, hey, I got to work in the WWE ring, you know. I'm trying to think. They had a show they had a SmackDown in Chicago, I want to say January, beginning of the year. And I called up the office and I said, "Hey, CM Punk, yada, yada, yada." Actually, I called Eddie and I said, "Hey, Eddie, what do you think I should do? Because I'm going to come by, you know. I'm sure it's all booked up, you know, for darks and all that. But it'd be cool, you know, if I just want to work out, you know, preferably with you, you know, whatever, you know." And Eddie called me back and he was like, "Yeah, show up, Punky. It'd be good to see you. You know, come on, blah, blah, blah." So I called the office, said, "Hey, you know, this is who I am. I'm going to be there." And I got there, I got my gear on, got in the ring, worked out with like Benjamin and Haas. Finley showed up. Finley remembered me from the camp. Finley started putting me over huge. All the agents started putting me over huge. Terry Taylor was still there at the time. John Laurinaitis. Like, it was all in all like a really good, amazing experience because like, you know, they try to kayfabe like who they like and what you're doing and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But they were all really, really receptive and they were like, hey, you got a good look. Jeff Hardy had just gotten fired. You know, Vince McMahon was like, hey, he's got hair like Jeff Hardy. We could put him on Raw on Monday. Nobody know the difference. You know, and it was just a really cool experience. Not to mention the catering is fucking phenomenal. You know, so I wind up doing like this this vignette spot with Brock Lesnar where I'm kind of just standing there in my Misfits hoodie and he walks by and I go, hey, congratulations, champ. You know, like shake his hand because it was like after WrestleMania or yeah, it was right after WrestleMania, so it couldn't have been January, but it was right in the beginning of the year. And you know, I wasn't booked. I just showed up. I did that. I got paid. You know, and it was just like. Since I was laid off, I was like, well, I'm really gonna try to make something happen. So, and then I did a Nashville SmackDown. Once again, didn't work. Just got to hang out with Spanky, which is always good. I actually did that Nashville SmackDown with Lucy, and it's just, you know, it's always awesome just to get in the ring and work out with those guys. I got to work out with like. See, I didn't know this at the time, that everybody was afraid of Nathan Jones and nobody would wrestle him. So he jumped in the ring when he saw me in the ring and he was like, hey mate, you mind if you show me a few things? And I was like, yeah, holy shit! Fucking, and yeah, I just got worn out by Nathan Jones. But because of that, Arn Anderson came up to me and said, I really want to thank you, you know, because everyone else won't get in the ring with him, you know. And so then for 2 hours I became Arn's tackling dummy, which was just like wrestling Terry Funk. It was an honor. You know, I couldn't believe I was sitting there, you know, and he's just working on me, showing a couple of the guys, like, you know, if I hit him here and he sells this way, he leaves this open, you know, and it's always a really big learning experience. And, you know, I'm down there, Eddie Guerrero gets in the ring, and everyone's like, oh my God, Eddie never gets in the ring. You know, why is he getting in the ring? Blah, blah, blah. Me and Eddie start doing stuff, and it's just, you know, Finley never lets anybody get over on him, and then he gets me in there, and all of a sudden I'm getting over on Finley, and everyone's like, who the fuck is this kid? You know, like, you know, it was really, really cool. And then I did I did Philly, and then I did Baltimore, and I worked a big pile of goo in Philly, and then I worked at Road Warriors in Baltimore, which is a pretty big accomplishment in my book now that Hawk is dead.
What was it like working MLW?
MLW at first, obviously the money's good, but honestly, like, something was always missing for me at MLW. It felt like I was just going through the motions sometimes, and it just felt like they took me and Raven and what we did in Ring of Honor and put it in MLW. And me and Raven both tried to make it different and tried to do different stuff with it. I do think I love doing the promos in MLW because it was like my first show, 1 promo. Second show, 2 promos. Third show, a whole page. By like the last show, I had 3 pages of promos to do, you know, because that's my forte, you know. And, you know, I love that. I got to work with Norman Smiley a little bit, which was cool. I've always wanted to work him more extensively. The locker room's a little bit more strange. It's more of an old ECW locker room, and, you know, a lot of the guys are just along for the ride, waiting for the money to run out or, you know, something to happen. And supposedly they're not dead, but I have yet to, you know, I'll believe it when I'm working the next MLW show. Yeah.
What did you think of the owner, Court Bauer?
I like Court a lot. Court's a cool guy. I think he needs to stop listening to certain people and stop letting other people run his show, and he needs to do what he wants to do with it. I think there's a lot of the production guys from ECW that are sucking him dry, and they may be a total necessary part of the show. I don't know, but chances are, in my opinion, they're not. And they're just along for the ride, you know, and I think that's unfortunate because, I mean, here's a guy who's bringing in like Kojima, you know, he brought in Kea, and like, you know, he's bringing these kick-ass All Japan guys and stuff like that, and he could have something really, really awesome, you know, and I just think he listens to too many people, you know, too many Chiefs, not enough Indians.
Do you think they'll make it?
MLW? Well, it's kind of like their death knell. I mean, canceling 2 shows or whatever, like, oh, they canceled 3, October, November, and December. That's kind of bad, but I've been talking to Court, and you know, he gave me 2 dates from January, and you know, we'll just see what the new year brings. You know, I think he's got to change a lot of the business practices that he does if he's gonna make it.
How'd you get hooked up with TNA?
Mortimer Plumtree, old cohort from the Minnesota days. He managed Ace Steel while we had our feud up there, and he got a job at TNA, and he was down there kind of like an all-purpose guy, doing production, doing advertising, doing behind-the-scenes stuff, filming stuff, doing all kinds of stuff. And it was pretty much just he expedited the process. You know, he called up me and Ace and said, hey, have you guys sent a tape yet? No, we're kind of thinking about it. Well, give the tape to me, I'll hand it right to Bob Ryder. You know, instead of just sending the tape and having it sit in a crate full of tapes of every other guy. Me and Ace got looked at, and then we got called, hey, come on down, you guys are on. Holy shit, we're on, cool. And we didn't know what to think. We drove down and just figured we're doing a dark match, you know? We get on there, we're on the pay-per-view, and you're going over. Oh, shit. Huh. And then you're doing a battle royal later in the night. Well, cool, you know, we're you know, right off the bat, you know, no one's complaining. I was out of shape because I just come back from my skull fracture. I wasn't up to par and all that other stuff. They took Ace, they didn't use me. And then I just kept going back and doing dark matches every chance I got, you know. And eventually they had no idea what to do with Ace. They stopped using Ace. They found a spot for me, plugged me in there. Raven helped out tremendously with that. That's it. Basically, we first got in because of Mortimer Plumtree.
What do you think of the product of TNA?
I like the product because it's an alternative to WWF, which I try to watch sometimes and I can't, you know. But everybody has their problems, you know. I could be like armchair quarterback and say, well, they need to do this, and they need to do this, and they need to do this. And I think their biggest problem is the same thing as MLW, too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. But now that Dutch is booking, and it seems like he has like, you know, carte blanche, I've already seen like such an increase in like the product and like storylines and everything else. I think the X division is something that helped put TNA on the map, you know. I mean, plus you got all the rich history with NWA belt. So I don't think TNA has even hit its stride yet, honestly. I think it's gonna wind up, you know, it's gonna keep chugging along, and I just hope it winds up being an alternative to what's out there, you know. We just need more exposure, that's all.
How come they haven't given you much mic time?
Because I don't think they know, honestly. I have Raven lobbying, telling Dutch that I'm a good talker. I'm supposed to make a tape of my promos and stuff like that. Plus, I'm with Raven right now. Raven does all the talking, but I would love nothing more than for them to do the CM Punk Raven feud in TNA. Because I think that'll make them realize that I have like breakout star potential, that I can cut a mean promo, that I'm a better heel than a babyface, and I just think I think it could make money, honestly. You know?
Is getting short matches in TNA frustrating?
Yeah, it's frustrating, but that's TV. You know, you got you got a 1 hour and 55-minute window where you got to fit everything in, and you know, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. The worst is when you actually call a match, if you're given 6 minutes, and as soon as you get to that ring, 3, you know, they cut you. But it's frustrating, but I don't hate it because it's a learning experience. You know, you need to be able to do that. You need to be able to cut time. If you're given a 12-minute match and you get in the ring and they say 4, you need to do it. You know, you need to know stuff like that. Working TV has been like a tremendous eye-opener. You know, like I used to be horrible with time, and I think because of working TNA, I've gotten a lot better with it.
What's it like working with Alexis? Well, she's gone now, but when you worked with Alexis and Julio De Niro?
Oh God, Alexis is one of my favorite people in the whole world. Yeah, I thought like we had a lot of gathering pride. We were like, you know, Punk, Alexis, and Julio. We're like, yeah, we're the gathering. We're weird, quasi grungy looking baby faces. But unfortunately, Alexis is gone. I can't work with her anymore. But Julio De Niro is a character and a half, man. I remember, God, I want to say the first time I met Julio, I was working on a Cleveland All Pro show, and he was like, "Oh, hey, Punk, it's cool to meet you, man. Maybe we'll make some money someday together."
That's so into.
Yeah, and that, like, I was just musing to him last night how that's actually kind of funny because it came true. I was like, "Hey, remember when you said maybe we'll make some money together?" I was like, "Yeah, that's kind of weird and cryptic. You know, here we are. You know, Ravens lackeys, tremendous."
What's your opinion of the Clockwork Orange House, the fun match you did with Shane Douglas?
I think it was good. 8 minutes long, but the point of the match is Shane Douglas is trying to attack Raven, you know, and I'm trying to stick up for the boss. And I think it was Douglas who actually said, he's like, that was my best match in like 2 years or something like that, which to me was a compliment, you know. And I don't think Shane Douglas is a horrible worker, but a lot of people were telling me, wow, that must have been like dragging, you know, like pulling teeth, or, you know, that was a really good match, blah, blah, blah. No, but I remember that match. I just thought we just did a couple clever spots and worked around it, and, you know, wrestling with plunder is always, it's always an experience.
What has been your favorite stuff in TNA, as far as angles or any of the matches that you've done in the X Division?
The one and only time I have ever worked Paul London, God, it was me, Jason Cross, Paul London, and what's that gay dude's name?
What was
Kid
it?
Romeo. Yeah, we did like this 4-way clusterfuck, which it was actually pretty, you know, it was pretty good. I did a nice little, I think it was a 4 or 6 minute quasi squash match. It was me and I just said his name. Shooting Star Leg Drop?
Oh, you worked for us.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm so retarded.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so do I.
NWA Wildside.
Right.
Not Lopez.
Jason Cross.
Yes.
It's me and Jason Cross against D'Lo and AJ. Nothing really stands out. There hasn't been like that one thing. Well, actually, I did a dark match with Cabana that was really good. You know, they like gave us 5 minutes, and it was like just a non-stop 5 minutes. You know, like it was like a mini CM Punk Colt Cabana match. And nothing really stands out yet because I haven't really been given the chance to shine yet. But as soon as they give me the ball, I will run with it.
What's the atmosphere like in the TNA locker room?
It's chaotic. It's a very small locker room. So, I mean, there's like hundreds of people, and it's like they got all this equipment and all these cables, and people are like dumping their water on themselves and like, you know, on like live wires, and like, you know, everybody's running around, you know, trying to figure stuff out, and it's not chaotic in a bad way. It's just a very cramped space, but the atmosphere is a bunch of guys who are really hungry and who are busting their ass trying to make something work. You know, I do think it's kind of bad sometimes when they bring in somebody who's really, really big, and they get there 5 minutes before their match, and they hide in the locker room, and like, you know, they don't, you know, show their face or something like that. Because one thing TNA doesn't need is like bad morale in the locker room, which they don't have. But you know, everybody you know, gets to eat at the White Trash Cafe. Which, if you're ever in Nashville and you're by the fairgrounds, go eat at the White Trash Cafe. The place is excellent.
Better than Waffle House?
Oh, yeah, hands down. Hands down, better than Waffle House.
What do you think of Vince Russo and his booking style?
I hate it. I have no real heat with Vince Russo except for the fact that he strapped David Arquette and like, you know, all like these pro wrestling things, which I think are blasphemy, is the only.
We got to see the Vince Russo shoot, and I'll tell you why he did it.
Just tell me why he did it right now.
For ratings.
For ratings. Who gives a fuck about David Arquette? Courtney Cox, that's it. But no, I don't agree with his Crash TV philosophy. I am more old school, and I will say the cliche, the marquee says wrestling. So.
What did you think of when Dutch Mantel came in as Booker?
Oh, it was tremendous. I mean,
and what changes have you seen?
What changes have I seen? Dutch is the first person to be backstage and to, where's Punk? Punk, come here, stand here, I'll be right back. Go gets Julio, sends runners to go do this. You, here's your verbiage. I want to see emotion. In this match, you're going to play the heel, but I want you to do it this way. instead of before where it was just like, okay, you're working kid cash, go ahead and match. See you later. He yells at you when you screw up. He tells you what you did good. He's just very vocal, and he's like the general back there, just directing traffic. And I'd never seen that back there until he came. You know, it was always just like you kind of read the lineup and know where you have to be at certain times. But Dutch lets you know, man, and he's like a leader. That's basically what TNA needs, and those are the biggest changes I've seen.
Getting away from wrestling for a couple minutes, what made you get the Pepsi tattoo?
I was sitting in detention reading an old reprint interview with the band Minor Threat, and Brian Baker, the guitarist, has a Coca-Cola tattoo because he's straight edge, and it represented him being straight edge. The interviewer asked him why he had it, and he said, because I like Coca-Cola, which that's so me. That's just smart ass and snide, and I don't like Coke, I like Pepsi. So Pepsi tattoo represents me being straight edge, not drinking, and Pepsi would be the superior cola product.
Getting back to wrestling,
And cola, of course.
Non-wrestling break. If you didn't have the TNA contract and WWE came to you with a developmental deal, would you take it?
And leave Ring of Honor.
That's a question, everybody asks that question, and I was just talking to Chris Daniels about this last night. It's hard to say unless like a real contract is in front of your face.
As far as becoming a regular roster?
It's just hard to say.
Right.
I could sit here and go, no, hell no, I wouldn't go work for them. But Dr. Tom calls me tomorrow and goes, hey, punk, blah blah blah. I would have to sit and think about it.
Right.
I have a lot of friends there, and I'm not naming names. I'm not saying even if they're on the regular roster or if they're developmental or what, but I have a lot of friends that are miserable. And if the people, my thinking is if the people there aren't happy and things aren't changing, like right now I'm having the time of my life. I am on top of the world. Aside from being a little bit injured, I get to do what I love with my best friends, like 3 days a week. I get to travel all over the world. I get to see things I never would have seen, and I pay for none of it, and I'm being completely supported on wrestling at the moment. So, I am a little bit apprehensive to change anything right now, for the better or for the worse. Things are just going really good for me right now, and, it's such a hard question to answer,
You talked a little bit about your injury. Right now you have a knee injury, correct?
Yep.
How serious is it?
Well, nothing's broken, and the MRI results came back, and nothing is torn, but I strained a pretty good amount of ligaments in my knee. I don't even remember the technical terms, for everything, but basically what happens is my knee will pop out of its socket. It's nothing to do with the kneecap, it's something to do with the joint. Pops out, the ligaments get stretched out, they get hooked on something, and the knee won't go back in. The knee fills with fluid, gets all puffy and shitty. I can't straighten my leg, I can't put any pressure on it, and I don't know what I have to do to put it back in. Right now it's been a week since it popped out, and I'm having little to no problems with it, but it's really weak. Even when I'm walking, I can feel the ligaments. It's really, really weird. It's hard to explain. But thankfully nothing was broken. Thankfully nothing was torn. And I'm just slowly kind of on my own rehabbing my knee. I went to the gym the other day in Louisville and did legs. I did really light legs. And I can do cardio on it and stuff like that. And I'm just trying to take it easy in the ring, wrapping it up, icing it almost every night and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure I'll be okay. Taking some weekends off too.
How hard is it to stay away from drugs and alcohol in the wrestling business?
It's easy. I have no interest.
Cool.
Sometimes I wonder, because I know a lot of people who take a lot of painkillers and stuff like that, and I've never taken a painkiller in my entire life. I've been in a lot of pain, but it's never been that bad to where I, feel I have to rely on a crutch. So I just wonder if I have like some goofy pain tolerance, which I really don't think I do, because I'm a big bitch sometimes. But I just, I'm set in my ways. I just, it's not gonna happen. Staying away from alcohol and drugs is really easy. It actually, it's the source of a little bit of drama in my life at the moment. Like with certain people that I know, using and doing certain stuff. It's just, where I am right now, it really pisses me off, but it's just something I have to deal with because, I can't change anybody.
What do you think of the internet and the role it plays in the wrestling business?
That's another weird question because it's like, without the internet, I doubt a lot of people would know who the hell I am. But, and it's not really the internet's fault that like people put stuff up on websites and stuff gets ruined and surprises get blown and stuff, because there was dirt sheets before the internet, and I don't see how the internet hurts the business all that much. I think individuals I think there's individuals who can use the internet to hurt the business, but I think as a whole, the internet's good. It's how I talk to half my family when I was in Japan. It's how I talk to half my friends. It's how I get half my bookings. It's just like such a way to communicate with people across the world. And it has its downsides too, but I think it's mostly positive.
Teddy Hart, he recently did an interview about his Ring of Honor Scramble Cage match and responded. What made you respond?
I prefaced my response with a huge, I didn't want to do this because my whole thing, if you got a beef with somebody, you either you settle it with them, you don't carry your dirty laundry out. It's like a whole different story with like me and Danny Dominion. But it's like with Teddy, Teddy just straight up lied, and I didn't want to sit there and listen to it. Listen to him play his little violin and say that he was being blackballed and there's a conspiracy, and because basically the truth is he knew what he was doing. He put a lot of people in danger, pissed off a lot of people, and when it comes to something like that, there is no second chance, because he's seriously lucky he didn't say, somebody could have died. I know it sounds like I'm being a bit over dramatic, but it's true. If you don't see somebody jumping off a cage that's 15 feet high in the air, if you're looking the other way and he hits you, I broke my head doing a neck breaker. So like imagine what that could do. His attitude sucks, and I felt he needed to be put in his place. And I feel I'm at a point in my career where I can do such things. I'm not like appointed to this role, but I feel sometimes that I am one of the leaders in the Ring of Honor locker room. So while I wasn't being held back from trying to kill him, I just basically I just felt he needed to be put in his place because he lied about a lot of stuff, and he's trying to get sympathy, and he used Owen Hart to get sympathy, and it just disgusted me. I was seriously fired up and pissed off and wrote that whole thing in a matter of 5 minutes. I was just so mad, and I felt like it had to be said. Like maybe I was a little bit harsh with calling him a douche and an idiot and this and that, and maybe a lot of people think that's a little bit childish, but that's how I felt, and there's no filter between my mouth and my brain. I say how I feel, and if that gets me in trouble, then so be it. But I don't think anybody's really pissed that I said that about Teddy. And a lot of people say that honestly they hope Teddy, comes around and this and that, but he's been given chances before, and I just hope he goes away.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Still wrestling. In the next year, I'm gonna try really hard to work in Mexico. I'm already going to Germany in January. I think I'm going to concentrate on some more goals. I think I'm going to try to do more international stuff. Obviously, I want to wrestle in like Hawaii. I want to wrestle in like all 50 states. Just to be able to say I wrestled, how many different continents and like all this other stuff. But 5 years is a long time away. I mean, if you think my TNA contract is up next September, which is like what, 9 months away or so. I don't know. I'm bad at math. And then who knows what happens after that. I do see at some point in my career working for the WWE or WWF or whatever it's called. But I'd like to think that I'm going to do it on my own terms, and I'd like to think that there will come a point where because things change. Maybe I'll be settled down enough to where I want to live in one place, and one of the big reasons is I don't believe being sent to a developmental territory would do me any good at the moment, because it's not the way I wrestle and it's not how I want to learn. I still have so many styles to learn, and I can still learn from so many different people in so many different places, so I don't feel like I want to limit myself from learning from one person in one place, but I mean, who knows, in 5 years I could be there, in 5 years I could be dead, but
From drug overdose.
yeah, right, from a Kool-Aid overdose. I'd imagine a girl is probably going to kill me. It's going to have nothing to do with drugs. But I don't know, in 5 years I could be, I don't know, crippled or dead. But either way, I'll still be wrestling.
Is there anything you want to say to the fans out there that you never, were able to say before?
No, not really. They've heard the whole "I'm better than you" thing before. I just, I just think that the fans appreciate, who I am and what I say and what I believe in, and I just want them to know that, this is my life. This is what I do. I'm extremely passionate about it. There's a whole bunch of people along the way that help me that I live and die for, like Chaz. I'll go to, right now, I put over my ex-girlfriend Nate, who put up with so much shit for so many years and finally got fed up with it. But she helped me out a lot. Ace for training me, Kevin Quinn for helping me out, Samoa Joe for always being there for me.
Allison Danger?
Oh yeah, Allison Danger is the best roommate ever, even if her hair looks like blue 2000 flushes. But, what are you going to do? That's really about it.
Cool. In closing, thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening.
Cool.